Grace, would you double check for us that we're good?
Can I what?
Check the stream that we're live.
Yes.
But I think we're good. All right.
Yep. You are.
Darren, can you give me a little bit of a recap? It's been a hot minute.
It's been more than that. So if I remember correctly, our last adventure was mostly oriented around the liberation of Lysanor from the tyranny of Archmage Theriu. And I have some notes here. Let's see if they're even remotely accurate.
The most recent thing was taking the crown, the coronet of Lolth.
Yes, that's correct. So, after we dealt with that, we had some free time. And Demiria had a long-standing issue that she had to deal with, which was the crown of Lolth. The Spider Queen was after it, so we had to secure it in a location she could not reach, which was the Raven Queen's domain. Naturally, to get there, we had to sail along the River of Blood, River Styx, and we went through an ordeal. So we got to the Archpriestess's temple, and she was nice enough to set us up with a boat. Got on that boat and went to the grinder. There was a lot of things that came after us.
Well, you put the Yetis through the grinder, I think, be a more appropriate way to phrase that.
Yeah, we put a lot of Sir's created meat to the grinder too.
Yeah.
Bribing monsters as we went. So it looks like we had a deal with like an ent and some creepy creatures of the Feywild, and we had to deal with some horse gods.
Oh yeah, that reminds me. You all received the blessing of the horse god, and that is an item in your inventory now, a single-use charge item. This applies to everyone.
Ah! You know not of what you've done.
Just once, but still cool.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, I think that spell lasts permanently, or at least until that creature perishes.
I thought it was a summon, like an 8-hour summon time length. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I did mess up.
I think it's an immediate.
Right. I mean, like however long it lingers, the duration. Let me look it up now.
Okay. If that's how you want it to work, that's how it works. But I was just thinking that typically you'll run this spell and then you have that creature until it dies and you just cast it again.
Okay, yeah. So it's a 10-minute casting time. Then you have it indefinitely until it dies, or you dismiss it.
Which means you don't dismiss it.
I would say, thematically, you would have it for a specific purpose, be it a battle or a journey of some kind, but once your purpose is complete, it would not be lingering afterwards.
Got it. So it's like a temporary companion. It helps you deal with an issue, and then you're gone.
Yeah.
Got it. Cool. Let's see. So then we reached the Raven Queen. There was a moment of betrayal from, not from betrayal, but mind games with Spider Queen. She tried one last-ditch effort to get the crown.
Didn't work.
And Zephyr was a little, like, what are we doing, guys? Just give it to her. It's fine. And then the rest of you were able to save the day. Anyways, so we made it to the Raven Queen. Got away from the Spider Queen.
Right.
And and she was able to seal its power, and we completed that quest. Demiria was granted a great boon, and we returned to the real world, as I'd like to call it, unscathed.
Relatively speaking.
Yes, only mind horrors to deal with. If I'm not mistaken, we spent some time in like the Twilight Doom lanes of what's that place called?
Shadowfell?
Yeah, the Shadowfell. And now I have nightmares.
Yep.
Not that I
In
didn't
addition
have
to
before.
the old nightmares used to have. We had to talk that list even more. Yeah. So, all that being said, you all agreed to, after that particular journey, to kind of split up and run about doing different errands and quests that you need to get done before reconvening. And everyone has left. Kaz has been shuttling people around. Miria had to rush off to make her appointment at prom, or not really the prom, but the Bulgrazian Festival, Independence Festival. So, all that's happened, and at the moment, Zephyr, you are currently sitting on the deck of the Perilous Periton. It is sitting in dock on the tower in Drakengard. So you have plenty of time ahead of you. And what is it that you want to do? Let's see.
Do I know?
I think today is today's the 15th, we'll say, of the month.
Okay. Do I know when the others plan to return from their respective endeavors?
Give or take 4 or 5 days. That's the general thought process. About a week.
Okay. I have a lot of thoughts specifically on keeping my Perilous Periton floating indefinitely. And to do that, I need to ensure that Ericrest and their source of floatstone exists indefinitely. To do that, I need to recharge Quintessahedrons. So I've been giving it some thought, and I think I want to talk to the other Archmage, Vexel, about what she's discovered and what insights we might have now that we also have Theriun's notes and tower and research. I go check it out and see if maybe there's some insights for how we can proceed to recovering the power of that Quintessahedron. And if she's got nothing, then I have some other things I can think of.
For sure. As you reflect on all this, you realize you haven't checked in a while on the state of your airship floating crystal. It's been sort of just left down there functioning for a while. You do know these things do wear out with time and damage. Might want to go check that out.
Yes, since I'm worried about it anyways, and that was the whole initiative for this, I'll go check it out right now and see what's up.
Make an Arcana check for me. 20.
I have a dirty 20.
You inspect it. It's still intact, but it is definitely far less luminous than it used to be. You get the general sense that from your conversations with that ship mechanic that you learned a lot from back in the day, this thing's probably good for maybe a couple more months, but then it's going to start to lose its reliability.
So I know in the past, the Vexel attempted to just shoot lightning into her Quintessahedron to give it some juice. I imagine... Well, so that... Never mind, because that only generates more floatstone. Floatstone itself runs out of energy on its own.
Mm-hmm. They've never been able to recharge floatstone. It seems to be a natural resource.
So, it was really hard to acquire some in the first place.
Yes.
We had to fight the Mimic Airship of Doom. So, I'm not excited about getting more of this. I'd like to have a permanent supply. Okay, so I've got a few months.
You do know that, like, you got the floatstone for free, and that you did fight the Mimic airship, and you went on that journey. It was part of the gift of the airship to you on per Lord Janos's negotiations for your help. But you could probably find floatstone and buy it outright, but yes, it is very expensive relative to what it once was.
And I'm a poor wizard, so...
Yeah. So yes, all that being said, you now know that a couple months and your airship was probably going to need a replacement.
Oof, that's a hard pitch. You need to replace your airship. Oh.
At least the crystal, anyway.
Yes. Maybe some people have ideas for other methods of floating your ship around. I know the kobolds had their hot air balloons, so if needs be, we can make it work.
A bunch of kobolds shooting firebolt into a bunch of balloons. Keep it up. You did select for the kobolds that have firebolt in their list of available spells.
So perhaps that is the backup plan. Well, the other thing I know is that there's a certain island that floats around at will in the sky. So perhaps that also has a answer to my problems.
Perhaps.
The Stjarnaheim it flies fine. It doesn't have any issues with sinking. So, thoughts. The Quintessahedron we recharged was in the pit, Vexel's pit. It was down in the deeps, and it had been recharged in that, call it a furnace, I guess. It was being powered by effectively the magma of the Earth's core.
Yeah.
And I've done some research, and Quintessahedron is just a polyhedron, but instead of being based on the number of sides it has, quintessence is the root word of quintessa, and quintessence is just the core, intrinsic, like, spirit, if you will, of something. So, using the core spirit energy of the Earth is appropriate for charging in a quintessahedron, because it's the quintessence of the Earth. So I thought I'd come and use some of my definition, etymology,
arcane language studies.
Yes, to maybe see if Vexel has the insight with some, teamwork.
Sure. You've thought about these things in the back of your head for quite some time now, but as you're sitting here contemplating this on your own, you feel like getting some knowledgeable eyes on your ideas, your theories, and perhaps hearing hers as well could be a good use of your time for the next few days. Do you know the teleportation circle to her tower? Do you go there, or do you reach out?
I would have to send a sending first, because that's just polite. So I'll go ahead and do that. Yeah. Hey, thought I'd come by and chat about powerful energy sources. Nothing was listening in. Can I pop by?
Certainly. I am in need of some distraction. I've been working on this topic alone for too long.
Right then, I'll be there momentarily. Then I will use a teleportation circle to arrive, because that's how I travel now.
Yep. It's well within your means to do so. It's a little odd for you to draw out the circle all by yourself on the deck of the ship, look around, no one's there to watch you do this cool magic, and you just kind of step into it alone.
It's not that the others would ever be like, oh, nice, but it was definitely a case of at least they're watching. It makes me feel nice. Like I'm doing something useful. Right.
So you teleport as you're used to, and you arrive in the chamber of Vexel's tower. Ahead of you is the infinite elevator that you see the platform has already been sent to your level. The robot drone, the automaton, is sitting there with his hand on the lever and says, "Welcome. Do you wish to visit Archmage Vexel?"
Yes, I do. Did you ever give us your name?
I am designation number 11011100012.
Got it. Oh, what? All right then. Well, designation number a lot. I would like to visit Vexel.
Going up, and you proceed to elevate. About 30 seconds later, it comes to a nice smooth gliding to a stop outside the door. You step out into the familiar chambers of Vexel's tower top. You see through the distant window the pit beyond. Vexel is seated at her central table. She's cleaned up a bit since the last time you were here, when it was a chaotic mess, as she was in the throes of trying to figure out what she could possibly do to break these things open or get them to react in some way. That all was fairly unsuccessful, and she seems to be relaxing at the moment. She is holding a cup of tea. You see in front of her a teapot set and a fresh cup steaming, waiting for you. She nods in your direction and says, "Welcome, Zephyr. Sit down. Let's chat. I've sort of been alone here in my ivory tower, if you will. thinking about these things for far too long, and I'd really love to get some informed opinions that are not my own on this. So yeah, how have you been, and what are your thoughts?
Hey, I've been doing good. Got a lot of weight off my shoulders now that I'm not worried about a powerful wizard stalking me and my family. Kind of a nice feeling.
Yeah,
So
I'm sure.
I am concerned specifically about a personal matter, which is the lifespan of my airship. I'm very proud of my airship.
The Periton,
Means-
is that correct?
Yes, it's Perilous Periton. It means a lot to me and the crew, and of course the Greymore gang, not just the crew. And I want to make sure that I can continue its use, and make sure that it's valuable to me. And the thing is that it's powered by floatstone, as you know, and as you also know, the floatstone is in danger of going extinct without the use of without the charging, I should say, of a Quintessahedron. So I've been giving it thought, and I know you've been studying this, and I think now is the time to have the mind meld to make this work, or at least see if there's a next step to solving this.
I agree. Well, you can always replace your floatstone, but yeah, like you said, it's not easy, kind of expensive, rare resource, and with the problems with the Isles right now, I would imagine that's only going to get even more expensive and downright unsustainable in the very short term. Last I've heard, I've been traveling back to the Isles now and then with the circle that you shared with me, and secretively observing their efforts to keep the Isles afloat. They have a whole team of mages casting lightning spells into the Quintessahedron at its core. That does seem to be sustaining it for the meantime, but they're working in shifts, and it's the sort of thing I can't imagine they'd be too happy to do indefinitely. They do already look pretty tired.
So remind me, the Quintessahedron that you had here, that we had charged, or we had found charged in the pit, was that of a different elemental theme?
Yes. Let's investigate that for a moment, shall we? And she waves her hand and casts Major Image, because why not? And appearing before you are 3 Quintessahedrons that you recognize. All 3 of them, actually. You've seen them all yourself. They all look more or less exactly like this. The individual structure is the same, but the light emanating from the smallest crevices and cracks that kind of illuminates it from within does seem to be different. The 3 colors are green, blue, and red. She says, I've thought a lot about what these different ones have done, and I'm of the opinion that they are fundamentally different. I've named them the Vitality Core, the Thermosiphon Core, and the Levitation Core. I think that those titles represent what they do. I'm not entirely sure how or what their original intent was, but we'll start with that. And you recognize the Vitality Core being the original Quintessahedron that she brought with her to Greymore, where she used it to resurrect the Herkavendi. The Thermosiphon Core that you retrieved from the depths of Vexel's pit in those ancient ruins, where it was channeling the heat energy from the planet, and then the Levitation Core at the heart of the central island of the Isles Gravitas.
And so, if I'm not mistaken, currently the Vitality Core is sapped of all its energy, the Thermosiphon Core is fully powered, and the Levitation Core is, as we speak, losing its juice.
That is precisely the state of things as it is. I have thrown everything I can at these devices. I've tried all different schools of magic, and I've observed, as you saw me do, that certain kinds of magic seem to be amicable to being absorbed by these devices. I was able to charge the Vitality Core with some necromantic dabblings. The Levitation Core, seems to respond to lightning magic, and the Thermosiphon Core absorbs fire fairly well. But Other than that, whatever amount of energy they contain is far greater than anything I could produce individually. They cannot be damaged or modified. I've tried everything I know, from scrying to blunt force, and inadvisable as that may be, it did not seem to yield the results I wanted. And
Yeah.
unfortunately,
So,
go ahead.
continue. Oh, you're fine.
Unfortunately, the facilities that utilized these devices, both in the pit and at Greymoor, were destroyed in the process of our excavation procedure, if you can call it that.
Yeah.
To the best of
I
my
forgot,
knowledge.
but Greymoor had that massive earthquake and whatnot, didn't it?
That was, unfortunately, the Herkavindi waking. That's partially my fault.
Well, the second one was partially our fault, so
Well,
we're even.
yeah. There was a teleportation circle at the Greymoor location, correct? I believe we observed
Yes,
that.
there was. I actually had the sigil.
I don't know if it'd be wise to try and teleport to that location. We may be stepping into a collapsed room, but
Well, if I remember, there was a statue there that had some ominous properties about it. And It was watching that circle, if I'm not mistaken.
that is true.
It may activate if we were to travel there, and I don't think I have the password.
That's fair. What I can say is that I originally found the Vitality Core at a small cave, maybe only a dozen miles or so northwest of here, out in the Barrens. It was ensconced at the base of a small fresco that had some of the original Ascendant script that I used to decipher a sister location in Greymoor. That's what led me to that location. Now, all this being said, I have made a return trip fairly recently to investigate the images further, but there is a significant amount of the script that I cannot decipher from age and from the lack of any existing direct translational methods. I was thinking perhaps we could return there at some point in the near future and pit both of our minds against it.
Actually, this is interesting. So, of all things, I have actually met an Ascended. We were in Elysium briefly for purposes, and
I'm sorry.
I found a.
You were in Elysium?
Yes, we traveled there. We had a very important task.
She's just like staring at you like,
So you're familiar with the planes and
yes,
traveling through,
right.
Yep.
Elysium is guarded by the many-eyed protector. If you were to attempt to pass, how did you bypass his watchful eyes?
There was a quiz.
A quiz?
A quiz. Have you ever seen Monty Python and the Holy Grail? I'm just kidding. Yeah, so we arrived there. Actually, you probably know of the individual that vouched for us. He's relatively famous. He once went by Nameless. He is now known as Abdel Luther.
Oh, the Far Wanderer. I've heard of his many adventures since his time in the Capable Crew. I did not know he was still alive. Although if you were in Elysium, he may not be.
Well, I don't know much about him. He's very enigmatic. But we made a deal with him, and he offered to get us in contact with the owner of an ancient artifact. It turned out to be the spirit of an Ascended.
You're telling me that you can just travel to Elysium to have conversations with the heroes of the past? This is huge.
It was very complicated.
All right. Well, I've never considered that as an avenue for scholarly research.
I should have
My
picked up
lord.
the fork while I was there.
She says, well, we'll have to discuss that later, but please just continue.
Yes, so my point being that there are spirits, at least, of the Ascendant that exist in other planes. Surely there is a method to translate these runes or this language, if not by asking these people, then through some other means.
I see.
Um,
Fascinating.
yes, since I am not incredibly learned in all categories, I found the easiest way to learn stuff is to ask other people that do know already.
This is wise. I don't believe there are any living ascendants. There's no proof of that. But, as you mentioned, the dead do have some answers. I could potentially leverage some of my connections to ask queries of those beyond the veil. It may be helpful in our research. And as you mentioned, asking people questions is a faster way than trying to find it out in a vacuum. I need to ask your permission for something, Zephyr.
All right, shoot.
It's complicated. If I were to tell you what I might tell you, I would require that you submit to a willing Gias on my behalf to ensure the integrity of the information I might share with you.
Oh.
Such that even if you don't intend to, no possibility of failure could come through.
Right, I could not possibly betray you even by accident.
Now, I understand the gravity of that ask. What I assure you is that the content of the Gias would be to ensure security of information, and I can't tell you any more than that.
Yes, I understand. I'm relatively familiar with the Gias. Would I have to come back every so often for a refresher?
In theory, this would be a momentary sort of placeholder. This is just for me to even tell you what I mean.
Yes. Well, yes. I have been burned by archmages before, but I feel that I can trust you. Maybe it would be best to ask yourself if you would allow another to Gias you. It is.
I have already I have already accepted this similar exchange from many others. I cannot talk about it any further.
Yeah. Well, I feel this is important enough to take this risk. So yes, I will agree to this exchange.
All right. Your trust in me is equal in my trust in you, and even giving you this opportunity. She digs around in a pouch, pulls out a scroll of Gias, and creates the spell. As you sit there, I believe Gias is it a 10-minute casting, or is it a 1 minute?
I don't know. It might even be instant.
Let me look. 1 minute. So, you sit there uncomfortable and a little anxious as she casts this Gias spell. The runes kind of appear in burning letters around your head as you watch them kind of circling, spinning. You feel the weight of the spell latching on your mind. It's not uncomfortable, but definitely you feel the pressure. And as she finishes the spell, she states clearly in common, I compel you, Zephyr, to speak to no one except the members of the Ocularis Exaltaris about its existence and its members and its secrets. And she closes the spell scroll. It bursts into flames and crumbles into ashes. She says, all right. You feel something like latch on your mind. And she says, thank you. I am grateful that you accepted this. And now I can speak a little more freely about this subject. I am a member of the Ocularis Exaltaris, a secret society of mages, if you will, that spans all cultures, all boundaries, all nations. Myself, Therion, Strobogast were all members, as well as some of the other mages from beyond, different mage colleges. There's currently, now that Therion is no longer a member, 8 of our number, and we meet rarely in situations of dire need or for the public sharing, well, very, very private sharing of privileged information. Information that the most powerful magic users of the realm may need to know. So, that being said, about being able to reach the expertise of those who are not like myself, whose knowledge is greater than. Unfortunately, Therion would have been my first point of contact for necromancy references of the souls who've passed beyond. But I would say the second most likely to be of use here would be Lord Velcatrex, Sangleminster Supreme of Delamont. He may be a good person to start with.
Lord Velcatrex. I don't believe I've heard of him.
You wouldn't have.
He is very secretive.
He is. I can only tell you this again because of the yes, but he is a very, very old, very powerful vampire lord who resides in the northeastern corner of Delamont. He's rather benevolent, relatively speaking, and he knows a lot about death and life. Those who
Yes,
live
I
beyond.
imagine as a vampire lord, he would know much. I was actually considering. I had not met any, but I had heard that they existed. I was thinking of seeking out a lich. As risky as that would be.
Well, I was about to say, my good friend, well, not really a friend, acquaintance. I think he's very curious. Gowron, the Eruditious. He is one of the only known existing liches at the moment. He is also a member of the Ocularis Exaltaris.
Interesting. I've read his book.
She waves a hand, and you see this image appear before you. She says it is the symbol of our secret order, and very few know its meaning. But
I can't help but ask: do you intend to inaugurate me in this order as a member? Because I'm kind of excited.
This is merely just the opportunity to discuss it openly. If at such a time you prove yourself to be worthy of admission to the order, then perhaps you would be. But we often bring in outside consultation for participation in this group as needed. Perhaps it's in your future. You do seem to have quite a promising space ahead of you.
All right, then. This is good to know. Good to learn. I understand now why the yes is required.
So do you think this would be wise to ask for further insight into asking for translational assistance from beyond via these skills of my colleagues?
Some of these colleagues are relatively old. I doubt any of them are quite as ancient as the Ascendants.
Certainly
But
not.
surely with that much time in their hands, they'd have some methods for reading and understanding these runic scripts.
Indeed. I can call a meeting. It's rare, but they usually respond very quickly if they're able to attend.
I imagine that since Lord Therion used to be a member, they might want to discuss his passing anyways, so maybe it's a good opportunity to air some issues. Not that I know enough about this society to know about otherwise, but...
Right. Strobogast is aware of your plans and your party's involvement and my own, but I believe that they'll have a few questions for me directly, and for you especially, given that you and your team were involved up to the end. There's no use in trying to keep secrets from these people. Word gets around eventually.
If I had known, I'd have cast some different spells today.
All right. Well, I will summon them. In the meantime, we can do some reading in my library. They will probably not be able to arrive until at least tomorrow. Is that agreeable with you?
That's fine.
All right.
It seems it would seem a little brash of me to summon the greatest wizards of the land and then expect them to show up on, on the dime. Actually, now that I thought about it a little bit, I'll have to do some research on some of Theriun's projects, since they've been lost now. He had some interesting developments, but that's for something else. I have plenty of things we can do to read for a whole day, so
Yes.
let's have at it.
She nods and says, "Come with me. I'll take you back to the library where you've been once before." You follow Vexel back to her large and very impressive library. She walks with you through the floor that looks like stars and the ceiling that has a rotating scale model of the galaxy above, shining a dim light over the entire space. You see hundreds and thousands of books, and she gives you a brief tour, highlighting different sections and demonstrating to you where to find how to index your books on your own and find your way around it. She says, "All right, I have looked through every book in this library at least once, but that doesn't mean I remember them all. I can't say I have that gift. My predecessor, Archmage Flixtewill, was a specialist in Velkian technology. I suggest we start with some of his archival works, since there's so little that I've been able to unearth on the specifics of the Ascendants, but Velkian tech is a bit more documented, and I'm sure you're familiar with some of it yourself. You've contributed."
Yeah, yes, I have. It's interesting because I'd considered the link that there could possibly be between the Ascendants and the Velki. I'm sure you're familiar with the little pink kernels of energy that they develop.
Yes, those strange little crystalline structures.
Yes, I'd wondered if maybe there was some similarity between the Quintessahedrons and these kernels of energy. Perhaps they store similar fuels, but I had not had a chance to even start on that.
Well, she points out a couple different sections and says, "Have at it. I can't say I'm going to be any use here. I've looked through everything myself, and even as the Archmage of Antiquity, I feel like my perspective has grown stale, and my ability to make connections has begun to stagnate. So please, take your time. I will be organizing my fossil collections on the next floor if you need me."
No worries. I'll have at it. Do you have any coffee by chance? I find it always helps center
Certainly.
the mind.
She snaps her fingers, and a portion of the floor splits open, and one of these spherical drones rises up from beneath, holding a platter with 3 teacups and a steaming pot of coffee, just instantly there. Rolls over and says, "Here's your coffee."
Thank you. Is there a plate of sugars and milks
Sure,
and creams
yeah,
and stuff?
it's all there.
Okay. Cool. I'll have it black.
Very well. He pours you a large steaming cup of delicious coffee. Vexel says, "Good luck. Take your time. If you need me, again, ask to be taken to the fossil collection. I need to sort them again. I've just put them on a shelf, and I haven't been getting around to it for far too long with my obsession with this project in the meantime."
Yeah. No, go for it.
She leaves you to peruse the largest library you've ever looked at. Largest private library, anyway.
Yeah. So I want to find the first book of Flixtewill's writings, but then I'm going to use an unseen servant to go find the rest while I'm reading.
All right.
That way I don't have to get up and go get them. I can just read.
Yeah, make a investigation check with advantage as you spend the next several hours doing this.
I have a
20.
dirty 20.
Okay. The 20. Looking at my notes. So you quickly find some of Archmage Flixtewill's notes and collections on Velkian technology, Velkian bases. You notice, as you flip through his maps and notable landmarks that several of the places that you discovered alongside Typhon in your expedition to the top of the Dark Spires is not included in these maps, and it's just not current yet. You get the sense that you've added to the body of knowledge for sure that existed prior to them.
Interesting.
You keep looking and reading through his various ruminations and discussions. You do find a section about those crystals, those pink crystals, and they discuss more or less what you already observed: their ability to store and charge some form of lightning energy, seem to be used as a rudimentary power source for Velkian housing and devices. But Flixwell at this point goes into a rant, and you read this 4-page long just footnote that says, clearly these crystals are an imperfect mimic of something else, of some other design that is not present in any of the ruins I've found. All expeditions to the parched sands near Moduli have unearthed unsatisfying results regarding the mechanisms of energy production. They stored energy in these crystals, but there's no evidence of where it came from. And going on and on, just ranting about the lack. There's something missing here. There's obviously something lacking in his chain of the chain of technology that just doesn't make sense. They have these small little batteries, but where's the power generators? Where's the source of it all?
Where are they being created?
Sure. Where's it coming from? And he says there was a single. He has a sketch at the end of his notes. He says a single item that seemed to be the source of their downfall. There is one account written in, and he has inserted the account there. One account of a mage who fought Hemdorak the Merciless on his approach to destroy the Velkian society, and he mentions something called the Lapis as the source of this conflict. What it is, it is not described and not discussed at any length. But this mage writing in this footnote seems very hurried and very frustrated, and then he ends it abruptly. So Flixtowell says this must be it. This must be somehow related to these storage mechanisms. What they are, I don't know. Where this lapis is and what its purpose is, I have no idea. It's completely off the charts in any of the records.
Awesome. So this is actually interesting because I happen to know, or knew, the guy who killed Hemdorak the Merciless. He's dead now. But I know someone else, 2 others, that were there.
That's true.
Maybe the right thing to do is contact them and see if they know what this lapis is, or at least if Hemdorak had something to do with it.
You do know that Genos has passed. The word has come down the grapevine. Spinel and Nameless are the 2 remaining ones who seem to...
Correct. I will bring this to Vexel and suggest contacting one of them. And
okay.
I'll let her give me some insight into who she'd rather talk to.
She says, certainly, Lady Spinel is a member of the Ocularis Exaltaris and would likely be attending the meeting tomorrow, if you'd like to speak with her directly.
That seems perfect. I have a suspicion that since her group of comrades took out Mr. Hemdorak the Merciless, it seems likely that it seems like there might be a connection there, at least, to this writing by Flixtowell and their experiences. She
reads over his rambling notes, and she says, wow, you actually read all that? Okay, to be fair, I've read this book 3 times, but when it comes to Flixtowell's footnotes, I tend to just glaze over a bit, since he likes to be very verbose, and I skim them, let's just say. So, congratulations, that is a very, very niche footnote that I never would have bothered to read thoroughly. She looks a little, pissed off about it.
So this happens when you're stuck with all of the hand-me-down
You're
books at
absolutely
the
right.
university. You end up reading former students' notes and learning more
Right.
from them than the books themselves.
That's a good
It's a
point.
trait you only get from being a poor student. Not that I know whether you were a poor student or not, but
No,
hey,
I was. Well, I went through the finest university in Lysanor, Bartleby College, on a full scholarship, paid for by my wealthy parents. But we won't get into that.
yeah.
I'm glad you could share that insight, and I will have to be more diligent
Um,
in my studies in the future.
He also mentioned some excavations, or at least expeditions, to Moduli, the in the sandy deserts thereby. Do you happen to know anything about this, and whether there's Velkian sites there?
Yes, that I have studied fairly thoroughly. Flixtowell was obsessed with finding these old ruins, and there were Velkian ruins deep in the desert. His theory was that it was one of their capital cities. It's one of the first places that Himdorak razed to the ground. But it's fully in disrepair. His investigation there, maybe 30 years ago, I only took up office about 15 years ago. He found mostly just more ruins that created more questions than answers. He felt confident there must be something there, but it was all filled with sand and impossible to excavate. Also, there was a problem of purple worms. They're endemic there, and makes it a difficult place to spend time in.
I would not want to face off against a purple worm. I like the sky, not the ground. Being underneath it's not my favorite.
Reasonable.
Huh. Well, I guess we'll wait for tomorrow's meeting, but I think we have some material here to work with.
Yes, good work. Can I ask that you keep going? I feel like
Oh, certainly. I wasn't
doing
going to
great.
stop.
This is only like 2 hours in. She says, I barely got started and you already have something, so please continue.
All right, then. And obviously you've heard of the lapis here in this article.
Well, no, actually. That's the only mention of this.
Interesting.
It's a footnote on a footnote of just a single word that seems to be like a scribbled scrap of...
Because, honestly, the way he talked about it, I wouldn't be surprised if this was actually a Quintessahedron itself.
The way it seems to be described by Flixtowell, and the significance that it might have held if it was a real thing in Velkian society, I wouldn't be surprised either, based on what we know of these things and their mechanisms.
Interesting. Well, I will continue my research.
Please do. I will return to my fossil collection. Send for me when you find more.
Yes. If you have any purple worm fossils, I'll take a look at them too.
I do have a jawbone, but not a full specimen. It would be too large.
That's disheartening.
Very well. As you were, she returns back upstairs. Now you can keep investigating, but how do you do so? What are you looking for?
So clearly the links here are Himdorak, Meduli. I doubt Lapis will be in there since she never saw it before, but I'm gonna look for that too. And that general deal. The wizard that rose against them, the one that like caused Himdorak, or the instigation wizard. I want to read about him too.
Sure. Make an investigation check as well, with advantage. Looking into those different threads. 27. Yeah. So, on those topics, you unearth a account of the capable crew, some of their legends surrounding their victories and exploits. You read at length about the various things that Lord Janos did in his life along with the rest of his team, Notric, Nameless, and Spinel. And in their exploits, they were rumored to traverse the ruins in Moduli at some point and investigate Himdorak's motivations. Himdorak destroyed Thomdaral, and he returned to Thomdaral through a planar portal that seemed to open at a specific time. The details are a little unclear, but it seems like Himdorak, after he defeated the Velkian Enclave, he was banished to the Plane of Fire for an indefinite period of time, until he spontaneously returned generations later at the top of Mount Thomderol. And that part is unestablished why or like how, but you notice that and you're like, that's kind of a significant weird timing spacing thing. You know that banishing a great ancient dragon like that for that long would be quite a feat.
Yeah, I'd actually thought that dragons were native to our plane.
They are.
Much like humans are. So banishing it to a separate plane is like, oh, frick.
A lot more work.
Especially for generations. That's... I mean...
Something else.
Yeah.
So that seems a little unexplained. You do see how the capable crew, with the help of some dragonborn heroes, climbed the volcano a few months after his return and slew him for permanently. Afterwards, they left the body on top of the volcano, and it's now a desolate volcanic wasteland. The dragonborn relocated to Kenwood and made a new village society downstream of the volcano, far away from the danger. Yeah, that's about all you get about those topics.
Well, you actually... Sealing away a dragon sounds familiar to something else that was done recently with a very powerful artifact. That being a much more powerful dragon, sealed for a much longer time, and with a different artifact. But
True.
that seems like a similarity. Speaking, of course, of a Trexelon being sealed away by the Debor. All right, then. Well...
You got the sense that the Trexelon was put to sleep with a simple sleep spell, but like on an amplitude never before seen on this realm. So similarly, it seems like this was perhaps even just a simple banishment spell, but perhaps magnified beyond mortal comprehension.
Intriguing. Okay, well, once again, it comes back to Himdorak, and the ones who know the most about him are Nameless and Spinel. Of course, and Spinel's actually on the Ocularis Exaltaris board, if you will, so that sounds like the way to go right there.
Potentially. Are there any other threads you wish to research at this time?
So... Here. Well, I'm thinking if the Lapis is actually another Quintessahedron, it's highly likely it's got a different energy theme. And so far we've had essentially necromancy, but life. And then fire. You know, it seems unlikely it would be, fire related, this Lapis, because we've already got the flux the thermal siphon core.
Sure.
Perhaps it would be... I have no idea. Is there any kind of... Shoot. Alright, so did I have any other notes on the wizard that was associated with the Velkies that had used the Lapis?
You looked into that. There was nothing. No records besides an unnamed, anonymous mage wrote that.
Okay.
And it could be more broad, too, if you want to research anything in particular that's just on your mind.
All right, well, in that case, using volcanoes as power sources, because we had all the magma there from down below in Vexel's pit was used to charge the thermal siphon core. Obviously, the thermal siphon core. It actually kind of works. I wonder if the Moduli Velkian Enclave has something similar. It sounds like they might have been associated with this Lapis as the core. That's why they put their city there. I kind of want to investigate that ruin now. Is there any notes about anybody who's investigated that ruin before?
The
Other than
Moduli
currently
ruins.
Flixtowil? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there were a couple different expeditions. There was the initial discovery by the capable crew. There was Flixtowil's expedition, maybe a couple decades later, to thoroughly dig through it. And then there was the. Are you trying to rack your memory of the last campaign?
No, I remember most of this stuff. I'm trying to figure out how to ask the right questions. So the capable crew actually discovered the Moduli site. They tracked down and destroyed the dragon that was responsible for that. And yet, I just need to talk to them, obviously. What am I doing? Just sitting here, like, twiddling my thumbs.
Clearly
So,
they have the answers.
yeah. Do we have any talk to the dead spells I can use to talk to Janos in the meantime? Or Natrick, for that matter?
No, it doesn't seem like it.
Okay.
All
right.
If you want, we could fast forward. Otherwise, I was going to say you could also research any other topics of interest to you at the moment.
Well, I'm in a wizard's tower.
Right.
It seems highly probable that she's got some spells lying around I can research.
Probably. Yeah, make another investigation check. See if she has any things laying around. Yeah.
Still drinking my coffee.
Yeah, you sip your coffee. You walk around looking at the different books. You pull a couple things down. You're flipping through a bunch of books, trying to find.
I have a specific one I'm looking for right now. I'm thinking of these Ocularis Exaltaris guys, reading my mind and all that. I'm a little sketched out by that. So I want to in fact ask, while she's doing her fossil arrangement, Vexel if she's got any notes on mind protection.
There's the relatively common spell of is it Intellect Fortress? Is that the one? Do you already know that one?
I do. Unfortunately, I was thinking of something that would prevent others from reading my mind.
There is Mind Blank, which I am capable of casting myself, but it is an 8th level spell. Is that something you have capacity for?
I do, actually. I've been expanding my own quintessence over the many months,
You
and
continue
now
to
I have that
impress.
capacity.
I could certainly teach you the fundamentals if you wish. Do you have...
That would be pretty grand.
I do have my spellbook, of course.
Yes, I'd have to obviously tell you that I'm planning to use it to protect myself from the unknowns on your council here. I don't necessarily trust them, even though I do trust you.
Fair enough.
So,
we'll get to that in a moment. I need to finish this up. She resumes her looking. You keep flipping through, looking for any other spell scrolls that we could line around. You find this old book that looks like a wizard's spell book, and you're like, oh, jackpot. You swing it open, you flip through, you get to the middle pages, and you see this like interesting circle in the middle, and you're perusing it. It seems to be some kind of like summoning spell, and you're like, now what does this one do? It looks like some kind of unique indentation. You're tracing your finger over it, and you smudge the ink a little bit by accident. You're like, oh, that's weird. Why is it wet? And then it flashes a bright red light, and there's a burst of fire and light, and bursting from the book, slamming down on the ground right next to you, this large toad-like monster bursts forth, having been summoned by the accidental activation of the spell within the book. Roll initiative.
I think I know what that is. Initiative. Oh, it didn't let me roll.
Oh, yeah, now you can do it.
Okay.
There it goes. You stagger back in confusion. This thing is immediately going to attack you. It shrieks, showering you in spittle, and
Vexel!
it's not your turn. It's going to try and bite you. Or no, it's going to do.
Not good.
No, it's going to do.
Actually, that doesn't look like what I thought it was.
Okay, 26 and 21 to hit.
Well, actually, I've got a surprisingly high armor class, though it's not pulling up here. 17 plus 5 is 22, correct?
Yeah. You can shield.
That'll protect me from one hit, so I will cast shield.
All right, you chuck up a shield, and the claws bounce off, but then it got a bite in before you decided to do that. So as it bites you, you feel this horrible, like, piercing sensation in your mind. Take 19 force damage and 15 psychic damage.
So that is 34, correct?
Yep. It shrieks, and okay, that's its turn. Your turn.
Good grief. Okay, so it's a freaking toad, so it can totally jump. So there's not much value in, like... Yeah. Wonderful. Ooh, change the music. Okay, good. You know what? I am not happy with this thing being in my grill. I would like to cast Wall of Force in a box around me.
Around you.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Sure. You.
I think I do 10 by 10 by 10, or whatever.
Yeah. No problem. You create a wall of force around you, and it erupts into a shimmering cube, keeping you inside. Is that it?
And then I can use my bonus action, but there's not much value to that. So I'm gonna stay here and be like, ah! Can I shout at Vexa like, Vexa?
Now, wall of force. Does that allow for the for teleportation?
Yes, you can teleport in and out of the Wall of Force.
Cool. It's gonna teleport through your wall directly on the inside of you. It sees this, hits it once, goes, and just teleports through to the other side and roars in your face. Your turn.
I'm gonna. Oh shit! I would like to use my bonus action to Misty Step out of my own Wall of Force.
Excellent. Okay, you do so.
So that's my bonus action. So what I'd like to do is before I leave, actually, I'll use my cantrip to cast Shocking Grasp on it.
Okay.
And it's not wearing metal, is it?
No.
Okay. Gotta check.
What's the saving throw?
Shocking Grasp is an attack roll.
Oh,
That
what
is
the
a lot of
hell?
damage. So
What the
I
heck?
rolled a 16. No, that's...
That's not right. It's 1d20, you roll a 12, plus 9, plus 100?
I don't know why I did that.
What the heck? That's busted. Anyway, so it would be...
21.
21, definitely hits. So 16 lightning
Okay,
damage.
Yes.
It is resistant to lightning.
Okay.
So,
My perfect element.
You
And now I
zap
will
it.
Misty Step out of my Wall of Force and leave him inside.
where are you going?
I'm gonna go. Let's see, I can go 30 feet.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go 30 feet and run because, like, why not?
Yeah.
So I want to run this direction actually.
Okay.
Ooh! Can I teleport onto the bookcase?
Yeah, up on top. It's like a walkway.
I know he can jump, but like maybe he's not a real toad.
He's not a real toad. Yeah, you can run along the top of the bookcase, fleeing away from the toad's
Yes.
approach. Okay. Okay, so you try to flee. That's your turn, and its action. It'll use its action to teleport up and then chase after you. It runs after you. That's its turn. Ah! It's just like charging, slobbering everywhere.
Okay, so it's a giant freaking toad. Do I recognize what this is from my histories and studies?
It's clearly some kind of fiend. You don't know what kind. You did not read the arcane zoology book when
Yeah.
cast it.
That's fine. I'm going to cast Greater Invisibility on myself.
Okay. Dig it.
Yep. And then I'm gonna, like... Now that it can't see me, I'm gonna go hide in the corner.
So it's going to make an attack of opportunity as you attempt to flee with disadvantage, of course.
Yeah.
18.
So when it goes to attack me, I can use my reaction to use the Atlas of Endless Horizons, and I can use that to teleport 10 feet as a reaction. And if that puts me outside the range of its attack, it misses.
Nice. Yeah, totally.
So that'll also give me 10 extra feet of movement.
Sure, yeah. So you'd sidestep 10 feet, and then do you jump down off the top, or where do you go?
I want to be sneaky about this so that it doesn't know where I'm at. Oh, and my Wall of Force will disappear because I'm concentrating on something else.
All right.
I want to... There's a lot of light in here. I'm guessing that these bookcases are all lit up and stuff, so it doesn't really matter. I'm going to just run over here behind Jupiter and hide there.
Okay.
Maybe one of the swinging planets will knock it off for me.
Okay. You run off that way. It stops, sniffs the air, looking confused, and you see it go like... and cast a spell. You recognize the spell as Dispel Magic. You do anything about that?
So I happen to know quite a bit about Dispel Magic because it's one of my spells. Let me see. Do I do anything about that?
It says a magical effect within range.
Yeah, I think you have to... Huh. It doesn't say you have to see it. That's weird.
Yep.
So... Interesting.
What spell level is invisibility?
Level 4.
So it's using a third level
So
spell slot, so still has to roll.
Yeah, well, seeing that he's using Counter Spell, I already used my reaction technically, so... yeah, I don't do anything.
Okay. Its spellcasting is not great.
What is it? I think it needs 13?
Oh, roll really high. 19 plus 2. So yes, you are no longer invisible. It roars and charges towards you.
I should have an extra 10 feet of...
Yeah, it doesn't knock it within melee range. It gets to here.
Yes!
Okay, your turn.
Okay, now time to be a badass wizard instead of a little scaredy pants.
Fight me!
Okay.
While you contemplate, I'm gonna get some water.
I was thinking about casting Whirlwind, and then I was like, oh, surely Vexa would not want her books everywhere.
Probably wouldn't appreciate that.
No, maybe I won't do that. So, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to cast. I guess in this case it's gonna be. Well, I'm gonna cast Summon Aberration, and I want it to be right in front of the Toad Man, and I, of course.
You want Slod?
I want the Slod.
It's immune to psychic. Yeah.
Yes,
All
the
right.
Slod does slashing damage. It's
summon
immune to
forth
psychic damage itself.
the Bagman.
So, the Bagman. So he's gonna have an extra 30 hit points because of my summoning deal, and I want to summon him at level 6.
Okay.
So that he'll actually have more attacks.
Yeah. What's all of his bonuses? So how much
So,
health?
He
Does he
gets. He has 90 hit points.
Okay.
He has 17 armor class.
Yep.
And he has 3 attacks per turn.
Nice. Okay, that's your
And
action.
The attacks are. What's the hit? Ah, it's. 1 second. Well, it doesn't say what the attack roll is on that sheet, but I'll find it out later. And that's my action, and then I'm going to use my bonus action to push myself 5 feet as I continue running along the banister on top of the walkway deal.
All right. Yeah, you can get to there, 35 feet.
Okay, and I believe when I summon the aberration, he gets to move after I do.
Yeah, I think he has his turn after you do. So go ahead and make your 3 attacks with Bagman.
Okay. I'll just roll them out here. And I think it's plus. I gotta find out what the bonus is real fast.
Should be, yeah, look up based on the spell level. that
Your
you
spell
cast.
attack. Your spell attack modifier.
It says
Which is-
on here for Aberrant Spirit, is that right? Summon Aberrant Spirit?
Yes.
It's 1d10 plus 3 plus the spell's level. So it would be
That's for
plus
damage.
9.
So I was thinking the 2 hits.
Yep, you're right.
So it's plus 10.
That
And
hits.
It attacks 3 times.
Let's see. One of those misses.
Okay. It cannot regain hit points until the start of the aberration's next turn.
Okay.
And it takes 1d10 plus 9 slashing damage twice.
So 2d10 plus 18.
Yeah.
All
32.
right. 32. It rears back from the onslaught of claws from the bagman who crouches there, eerily protecting you. He doesn't like the bagman. He's going to attack the bagman head on. Let's see. Yeah, 2 attacks. 16 and 20.
It has an armor class of 17.
Okay, so 20 hits. It would take 9 force and 11 psychic, but he's immune to psychic, so he takes 9 force.
Okay, so he's got
That's it.
81.
Wow.
Yay.
He hits it twice, and then he looks in confusion at the fact that that did very little and roars angrily at Bagman. Okay, your turn.
Okay. Now that I've got the bagman out there, I need to take him out. So he does psychic damage. I don't like using psychic against psychic damaging creatures. I'm gonna go ahead and do. He's also resistant to lightning bolt earlier, so I'm gonna use chill touch.
Okay. Chill touch. And that's
129.
Why
to
do they
hit.
all have a plus 20? It's not 20, so you hit.
Yeah, plus 100. So it did
23?
23 necrotic damage, and he once again can't heal.
Yeah. No, he takes all of that. He can't. He's not resistant to necrotic. Okay.
Nice. And I'm gonna run along the banister some more.
Keep running. Okay.
Space it out. That's all. There's a monster in your library.
She can't hear you. She's upstairs.
Yeah.
Gotta send for that.
Yeah, gotta send a setting.
All
Okay,
right.
so Bagman, murder it.
Okay.
Ooh, the last one's a critical.
Nice. All of them hit.
Okay, so
3d10, 3d8 plus
40-10 because of critical.
Crit, yeah, 40-10 plus 27.
Yeah.
Ouch. Jeez.
54. Oh, and the Bagman regains 5 hit points at the beginning of his turn.
Excellent. Now, is it the 10 hit points, or you can't get back 10 hit points?
Oh, you
right?
can't get 10 hit points. You're correct. So,
So
doesn't
he's
gain
still
that
at
back.
max health, but yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Uh,
Good call. I totally spaced that.
The Hydroloth is going to cast Crown of Madness on the Bagman. Bagman, make a Wisdom saving throw.
I want to make sure that it works. Wisdom saving throw is 0, so I'll just roll a d20. I don't know if he can be charmed. He probably can, but I don't know.
He's a creature, technically, right?
15.
That fails. You watch as the Bagman, as he's standing there looking at the Hydroloth, a jagged. That's a good question though, because it's a summoned creature. So you like automatically
I need to
have.
find summon aberration. Here we go.
Because it is a creature, so I should be able to cast a spell on it.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering how it affects. Because, like, can you dominate monster, someone that's already dominate monstered?
I don't know. It doesn't say you can't in any of the text that I've seen.
So, I will say, you still have control over Bagman, but it has Crown of Madness cast on it, so it's like, it's also going to be trying to attack you.
Yeah, it doesn't say you can't do anything about that. So yeah, sure, it works.
Bagman, you see Bagman, like his head rotates 180 degrees towards you, now with like a flaming crown on his head.
This is so much
You
worse.
have flashbacks as he starts crawling across the ground towards you.
Oh, I'm 30 feet farther away, I think, at this point.
Yes, you would be. So you're...
I'm over here by Saturn, or Neptune, or whatever that is.
Yeah. This thing does that, controls Bagman and starts sprinting towards you, 40 feet per round. Bagman's gonna come as well, but it's after your turn, so he's still there for now. Zephyr.
Okay, so Crown of Madness. Is that... Do I happen to know if that's a concentration spell that I can disrupt?
I believe it is. It's charmed for the duration.
Right, but if the spell ends early because he can't concentrate, then it ends, correct?
Yeah.
I just don't know if it's a...
Oh, sorry. For it to continue, he has to use his action to maintain control. It's not a concentration spell, but you burn your action every round to keep it up.
Oh, okay, so he could potentially let the Bagman do whatever he wants.
Right.
If he's not... Okay. Okay, so... Seeing that, and being annoyed...
I may or may not have picked this monster just for you.
Damn this thing! Well, it doesn't seem to be that fast, at least. So... I'm gonna go ahead and use... There's a bookcase right here, right?
Yep.
So I want to use Chill Touch on the monster.
Okay.
God. Is a 23 to hit.
Yeah, for 11 necrotic. How do you want to do it?
Oh! Just enough, huh? Okay, awesome. So I'm just running. I was about to jump across the deal.
Yep.
So I'm just gonna say that I'm not even looking. I'm just...
You hear a thunk as it face plants and goes limp. And as you're about to jump, you stop and look over your shoulder. And you see it just like skid to a stop, face down. Its body bursts into like green flames and just burns to ashes as it is returned to the hells from which it came. The Bagman, his crown disappears, and he looks around a little confused, then comes crawling over to you, your friend, once again.
I give it a very tentative high five. And then I'll be like, hey, go get Vexel. Bring her here.
It like looks around and runs over to the elevator. You see the robot says like, "Hello, what floor do you want to go to?" And she goes, and like, you know.
Oh, she's on a different floor. I get it
abyssal.
now. Okay.
It says deep speech. It says in deep speech something
Yeah.
something Vexel, and the robot's like, "I'm sorry, I do not understand. I do not speak whatever that language is."
Like, all right, well, never mind. Come back over here. I'm gonna go look at that book. Actually, if its body's all disappeared, right?
Yeah, it's completely gone.
Okay. I'm gonna go look at that book then.
All right.
10-foot pole kind of thing.
You go, yeah, look at the book. Much more gingerly, you examine the pages, and you see now, even though you smudged it and seemed to activate it, there is like the text is glistening slightly. It is a... You read the text from a distance without touching it. It is a spell... The spell, Summon Fiend, or whatever. What's the...
Ooh.
Look it up. Summon Fiend? Yeah, Summon Fiend.
Okay. Fiendish spirit. Ugh. Nice. Okay, well, cool. Summon Fiend. I'm pretty sure those are like the kind that just eat whatever, right? No, it's an ally to you or your companion. Cool. I suffered for this, so I'm gonna go ahead and scribe this dealio.
Yeah, sure. You're in the behind you. The bagman is still arguing with the robot that cannot understand it.
So I'm going to tell the bagman to go ahead and look through the library for anything it can read.
It crawls out away from the the robot that still seems confused, and it goes around pulling random books off and like staring at them, putting them back, and crawling around and looking for anything that could be of use. You spend time scribing Summon Fiend. What's the cost for that?
So it's a 6th level spell, and I
Yeah.
think the way that works, it is conjuration, so I get half price.
Nice.
And half time too. I think it's supposed to... Shoot, I gotta find the wizard stuff again. Home. Classes. Wizard.
It's like 50 per level, I think.
Yeah. The golden time to spend a copy is half. So I think it's 50 per level. So it would be 300, so 150.
Yep, 150 gold, and then how many
Oh,
hours?
I have money. It's...
Like an hour per level, or?
I don't
Oh,
know.
no, I
didn't
think the
see that.
time... Isn't the time for like higher level spells like ridiculous? It's like 2 weeks or something.
Oh, it's not that long. But it is had for a conjuration spell. I think it's 2 hours per level.
Okay, we'll just say 4 or 5 more hours you can do it.
Okay.
Bagman, eventually, you're focused on your task, but as he's about to disappear, you feel the spell fading. He's sitting there waving at you, and there's a stack of about 4 books that seem to be written in various amounts of deep speech.
Sweet. I don't... It actually can talk to me because we know the same language. So I'll say, okay, tell me the titles real fast. And then...
he explains them to you. One is the breeding habits of beholders.
Nice.
Another one is the star spawn omelets and all the foreign food you've never tried. And then there's just a couple other ones that are so like obtuse they just seem to be madman ramblings that like you're not sure if it's deep speech or just gibberish. Could be both.
So we fought a star spawn recently, didn't we?
One of those
On
things.
the River Styx.
Yeah.
Interesting. And it had a really cool staff that I didn't get to have. But okay. I'm gonna go ahead and spend the rest of my time on this.
Sure.
Today, because he's about 5-6 hours, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I'll just take a rest because I need it.
Yeah.
And we'll talk to the smart guys tomorrow.
All right. You finish scribing Summon Fiend into your Atlas of Endless Horizons and take off the gold. Eventually, Vexel comes back and joins you and says, like, did you find anything? Why do I smell conjuration magic? What have you been doing in here?
I was perusing your library, and I came across a very interesting book. Show her the book.
I don't think I read that one yet.
Oh, well, there you go. I was thumbing through the pages a little quickly, and I thumbed some wet ink,
Oh.
which naturally
Was it red?
released a spell.
It was red.
And, yeah.
It's sanguimancy magic. It's bullshit. Anyway, should have vetted that one before I put it on the shelf. My apologies. I'm sure you're all right. You seem fine.
I have, like, a bite.
Like a scratch and, like, the mental damage.
Yeah, well, fortunately, I was able to summon up some aid, and he made short work of it. Just a generic fiend, giant toad monster.
Well, do try to avoid summoning any fiends into my tower in the future. But I guess it's my fault for putting it on the shelf and giving you free reign. Well, we can discuss this tomorrow before the arrival of the others. They'll be here at noon for lunch. Rest up. If you wish, I can show you to some private chambers.
Oh, please, that would be nice. I didn't know you had guest rooms here.
I do. I don't usually entertain, but in case the time needs it, I have a private room for anyone. What
right.
do you have any requests?
Uh,
Any things like you prefer, like a nice bed, a hammock, any
just
accommodations?
actually, I don't really like sleeping in a room by myself. Do you have any
Oh,
like a robot maybe they could sit in the room with her?
oh yeah, I have a robot. One of the
Yeah,
robots
because
can
if I
watch
could
you
just have
sleep.
somebody they would watch for me, that'd be nice.
Yeah, for sure, sure. She like takes this all in stride, even though she seems you know that's an objectively weird thing to request, but she is an archmage and probably deals with a lot of strange people, so she is used to odd requests. She takes you back to the elevator, gives a custom request to the robot. He pulls the lever, and about 30 seconds later, you come to a stop at a very small circular room, no windows, with a elaborate king-sized four-post bed on the far end of it. There is a vanity mirror and like a big dresser on one side. There's a folding table with like a magical iron there that heats itself to crimp and iron your clothes. Just like a really basic, simple room. Not interesting. There's no decor or anything. But she says, this one will keep you company. And the elevator robot rolls into the room and parks itself next to your bed, staring at the spot where you will be sleeping.
Um, I'm gonna tell it to, hey, just scan the room for me and make sure I'm not like having nightmares.
Yep,
And that's all I ask.
I can do this.
Thank you, buddy.
Buddy. I will go by Buddy now.
Yes.
She shakes her head, Vexel, and she says, "All right, well, see you in the morning." She flips the lever and leaves you alone in the room.
Awesome. So I'm gonna do the whole alarms on the doors.
There's only the archway to the elevator that drops off into a bottomless pit. That's
All right.
the exit and entrance.
I'll put an alarm on the archway
Of
then.
course.
And other various paranoid things. Tripwire, that sort of thing.
Right. Just why not?
Make sure that there are no bags in the room, except for my bag.
Fresh out of them.
Cool. All right then. Time for sleep. I need to recover for tomorrow's ordeal. Oh, I didn't talk to Vexel about that. I'll do it tomorrow.
Yeah. So you fine. You crawl into bed. You are watched by the robot. You feel safe, and you get a long rest. And
I have a roll to make.
yes,
Oh, good.
all good. With that, I'm gonna run to the bathroom. This will be our halfway point break.
Awesome.
All right. Yeah, I've returned.
Awesome. I am preparing different spells for today's encounters.
Including
Right.
Summon Fiend?
I actually can't add it in D&D Beyond. I have to add the spell, but
I can do that.
I haven't put enough thought into the Summon Fiend thing, so I'd only be summoning Hydroloths.
Actually, I don't think that's one of the
Hydroloths?
ones you could summon officially.
Well, if it's a Yugoloth and it... I see
right.
what you mean, but like, yeah.
Yeah, I looked at different like fiends that are like level appropriate, and that one had just like spell magic, detect magic, teleport, mind control, psychic damage. It was magic resistant to magic like attacks. Generally speaking, It was pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty quality. It has much better damage than an aberration. So basically, I summoned the Bagman at level 6, right? If I had the same 6 level spell for this, it's just better.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll just call the fiends aberrations in terms of what they look like. They'll just look the same.
Sure.
Just be better.
Sure. Okay, added it to your learned sheet list.
Sweet, thanks.
All right. Back to the
Maybe I
action.
will have the Hydroloth in there. He was pretty terrifying. I have a
List of
good
things
job
that have
of like
freaked out
finding things
Zephyr.
like
Yeah. Terrifying monsters that only Zephyr would truly be afraid of. All right. So the next morning, you wake up. You join Vexel in her room for breakfast. You eat it over, looking out over the pit, which you notice as you glance down into it is still emitting a faint orange glow from the ceaseless lava that pours into the pit below, deeper into the earth from when you guys blew it up. You enjoy crumpets and hash browns with boiled eggs and coffee.
Star spawn eggs.
No, just the standard lizard
Chicken
variety.
eggs. Lizard variety. I guess chickens are sort of related to lizards.
Pretty close. Is there anything you want to do and talk about before the meeting?
We mentioned Mind Blank the other day. I don't think I'm going to have time to learn it today before our meeting, but I would like to take time on and study that with you before I leave.
Certainly. After our meeting, if we have the time, perhaps I can share what I know. If you can provide the material component cost, I'm happy to give you my time.
Excellent. I can easily do that. I think the spell's actually got none.
It'll be like what, 400 gold and a day
For
and a
the
half?
ink and stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
Come on. Refresh. Didn't like me. Yeah, but it's 8 level spells, so 400 gold in a day and a half, yeah.
Yep. I'll say, since you have an archmage teaching you, that makes it half at 8 hours, one full day. But you can do it in a day.
Nice.
All right. So she agrees to that. Are you ready for the meeting?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
So, when the people are about to arrive, like when the first person arrives, I'm going to go ahead and I'll cast Intellect Fortress when the first person arrives.
Okay.
Not that it's going to make a difference, but like you never know.
Sure. Yeah. So about 11:50, the elevator rises up, and stepping into... Actually, no. Vexel says, we shouldn't do this in my study. Let's go to the meeting room. I have a formal space for this prepared. You ride the elevator down to a large, ornate room. It's got windows all around it that look out in every direction over Slate Way. There's a simple yet elegant long table that sits down the center of it all, and there are magical globe lights floating above that provide an ethereal kind of warm light. Something like an archmage would have as a meeting room, for sure.
I expected the table to be round.
I find the ovals are more interesting in shape. You do notice that at the center of the table, there is this triangular eye symbol, like a sigil, kind of etched into the center of it. Subtle, but obvious now that you know what to look for. All right, so after a bit of time, stepping off the elevator into the room, you see a halfling man. He is wearing impeccable black suit, and his hair is kind of coiffed and slicked back a bit. He looks to be of indeterminate age, somewhere between 30 and 50, if you had to guess. And he looks around the room, meeting your eyes, and that of Vexel. He nods to Vexel and stares back at you for a while. What does the effect of Mind Blank do again?
Mind Blank is awesome, but I don't get to do Mind Blank.
Sorry, Intellect Fortress?
All it does is give me advantage on saves against the mental saving throws and resistance to psychic damage.
Okay.
So if he's doing something that has no save involved, then...
Make a save.
Okay. What kind?
Intelligence saving throw.
I get to have advantage on my best save.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Unfortunately, even with your magical defenses, you feel something push through and poke at your memories for a moment. And you try to, like, resist it, and it withdraws rapidly. He sort of, like, smirks a little bit, says, at least you took the basic precautions. Vexel, who is this newcomer? Vexel says, welcome, Falcatrex. This is Zephyr of Lysanor. She is a member of the Greymore gang and was instrumental in the recent developments with our prior associate, Therion. Falcatrex looks back at you and raises one eyebrow, and he says, I was expecting something a bit more. Although I suppose, as he looks at your gown and notices that you are in fact wearing Therion's robes, he says, I didn't quite recognize the color, but I see now the order of the inheritance of Therion.
I wasn't about to pass it up, but it definitely needed a color scheme change.
I agree. Gold and white's a bit tacky, although silver and blue isn't necessarily better. I prefer the classic grayscale. He goes and sits down at a table and sits there primly, just kind of waiting. So that is Falcatrex, the Sanguomancer Supreme of Delamont.
Sanguomancer. Ooh, he probably knows about the Sanguomancy spell I found in the library.
Most likely. Next up, we have leaning heavily on his crystal staff, Gowron steps off the elevator, who you've met before with Sir at the base of Atrexelon's rest there with
Right.
Spinel when they were encapsulated in crystal. He steps out, nods to Vexel and Valcatrex, and then looks at you and squints a little bit. He's like, we've met. You were there with Atrexelon, weren't you?
Yeah, we didn't have much time to say anything, but that was a hell of an experience.
Yeah. My existence is full of things like that. I'm not sure I'm a fan of it. Kind of want to just be...
Your existence?
Yes. We'll talk
pretty...
later. I'll wait till people get here. And he, like, hobbles over to his seat and sits down in it, kind of wearily. Next up, stepping through the staircase, you see Strobogast in the flesh for the first time. He comes in and nods to you. I gotta be sharing some of the art for these things. I don't have one of Falcatrex, but I do have Strobogast. Strobogast.
No, his mushrooms and his
And then we
plants.
have the Archmage of Cultivation. And then we have our Vexel, of course. She's in the room.
God, she's so creepy.
Gowron. Don't think I have Gowron in here, but he's in there somewhere. I do have cool art of him. And then next we have, enough of that, a imperious-looking drow woman steps through the doors. She has on the sort of battle regalia of the Drow, like upper echelon, and she her color scheme, unlike Kaz's house, which is a house de Taurus, it's like a red and black scheme. Hers is a kind of purple and black, and she nods them all. And Vexel says, "Welcome, Duchess Kestimus, Chief Advisor to Empress Resnora. Welcome. Your seat is over here." She sits down. She doesn't say anything. She just kind of looks imperious. Next up, stepping through, you see a fire genasi with bluish flames wreathed around her head and rippling up, kind of lifting off of her olive skin. She is wearing long robes that billow behind her. Vexel says, "Welcome, Professor Fumari of the Lutetia High Council. Your seat is over here." She does sit down. She's older. She's probably like in her about 70 or so, if you had to guess. And then next up is Lady Spinel of the Capable Crew, familiar with her resplendent vermilion staff, the icosahedron glowing faintly as she steps down and seats herself adjacent to Gowron. They nod to each other friendly, and she acknowledges everyone else in turn. And then, last and not least, the elevator rises up, and you see what looks to be a ball of fur, just a mound of like hair. Vexel says, "Welcome, Kevin. And how was your journey?" You hear a muffled kind of grunt of affirmation from within the fur, and it sort of begins to lumber forward and hops up onto a stool, squatting there. Make a perception check.
5. It's just not my thing.
Kevin is the hairiest person you've ever seen. You can tell that he does appear to be a person, but his mop of graying hair, incredibly bushy eyebrows, and extensive beard, and arm hair seem to grow so lusciously and interwoven that you can barely see any skin at all. All you can see are two little beady brown eyes peering out from the mass of hair over the rough-hewn leather clothes. He has a bit of a smell that you can pick up. It smells like dirt and woods, bark, and all 8 of the members of the Ocularis Exaltis have arrived. They all sit around this table, and you sit at the 9th seat in what was previously Theriun's seat, you can only assume. And Vexel says, "Welcome all. I have summoned you today for the purpose of discussing this ongoing topic I've been researching for some time." Professor Fumari of Lutetia High Council raises a hand and says, "Sorry, don't mean to interrupt, but before you get to that topic, I would like to discuss a more pressing matter. This young woman, recent graduate of Lysanor, or from Lysanor, not a graduate, is sitting here in the prior robes of one of our members. Can we discuss that briefly and see what that's about?" Vexel nods and says, "Well, there were some disagreements, there were some developments, but long story short, myself, along with Strobogast and this young woman, Zephyr and her friends, led a bit of a rebellion in Lysanor to overthrow Theriun's control of the city. It was a very dangerous situation where his increasingly sporadic and unpredictable behavior was leading to a series of dangerous experiments and endangering the livelihoods of many and well-being of many people in the town. Our last meeting, which was 4 years ago on my count, he was still somewhat with us, but you all recall his demeanor at that meeting. It only got worse in the years since then." And they all sort of nod and seem to understand. Strobogast speaks up and says, "I was informed prior to this operation how things might go, and it was my judgment that this was for the best. Theriun, as powerful as he was dangerous and didn't seem like the type to be interested in future cooperation with our organization." They all kind of murmur and nod, and they look at you, Zephyr. You hear Kevin speak up, and he says, "What do you got to say for yourself?"
Well, Archmage Therion made it relatively personal with respect to his antagonism towards me and my friends. So I didn't really have much of a choice in the matter. If I'd known there were some people that would be upset about his passing, then I still wouldn't have thought twice.
No remorse. I like it.
Sweet.
Kevin gives a thumbs up. You can see from like proportions of his forearm, he seems to be dwarvish underneath all that hair. But again, the hairiest dwarf you've ever seen.
Yeah. And, you know, you guys can... I think at this point the tower's been pretty much ransacked, but if you want to go take a look at some of his absurd
We already have
experiments.
We already have done that. We've collected the more sensitive aspects of his operations, and Storbergast and Vexel say, yes, we've also thoroughly combed over what was left of his tower. It was cleared out, and the more sensitive topics, the things that people might have started asking really strong questions about, have been removed and sequestered.
I'll note that during my own search, I didn't find anything related to this group, so he was keeping that secret pretty well.
Yes, and we expect you to do the same, under penalty of certain death.
I would expect nothing less.
So, to business. About these, go on, Vexel. And she begins to explain everything that you talked about the day before. The ongoing investigation, the nature of the crisis in the Isles Gravitas, and the need for investigating further into a way to decipher the Ascendant language, such that they could get the full picture from this one remaining fresco that she has access to, where she found the Vitamancy core. Everyone listens carefully, and they all seem quite interested. They say, this is certainly a project that you would be interested in, Vexel. We're not too concerned with the past. We're thoroughly looking to the future. This is Fumari talking. She says, but what do you propose as a solution for discerning this language? You don't find that the typical methods work? And she explains, no, tongues and other deciphering magics just don't apply, because it's not really the same kind of language. It's more of a what's the word for hieroglyphics? It's more
hieroglyphics, yeah.
Dated, and it doesn't quite doesn't translate the same way. They talk and argue a bit more. Do you have anything you want to interject with?
I would suggest the possibility of contacting a previously passed away Ascendant for their insight. You
say that, and they all kind of look over towards Velcatrex. He says, yes, I may be able to help in that accord. Do you have anyone in mind?
Well, the only Ascendant I know of is Ruderok. So obviously he would work. I happen to know he exists in Elysium right now. But at the very least, he might be able to tell us someone else we could contact.
Elysium. That's a little bit trickier to breach. But I could probably swing it.
Let's do it. Crazy wizard time.
Before I go and try that, what's in it for me? And you see, like, half the people at the table kind of roll their eyes. Vexel says, well, Velcatrex, I know that you have your time and your skills are very important and very well respected. Spinel rolls her eyes again at this. But what would be beneficial for this exchange of skill and information? Velcatrex sort of taps his hands on his fingers on his forearm as he thinks, and try to describe it adequately. And he says, well, this newcomer. I'm always curious about where people come from. I'd like to get a more intimate insight into her background and her motivations. So tell me, Zephyr, have you ever been to Delamont?
I cannot say that I have.
You should come visit. Stop by House Velcatrex. I'll be sure to let them know and that you're a welcome guest, and discuss more at that time. Everyone on the table looks a little bit uncomfortable. They're like, but they're rolling with it because this seems to be what Velcatrex wants. Is just from Zephyr, a sort of acknowledgement of the open invitation.
Well, where is Delanor?
Delamont is on the
Delamont, excuse me.
eastern edge of Camoween, in the basalt sprawl.
Oh, I was on the wrong side. Okay, Delamont, got it. Interesting. I would be interested in visiting all the different parts of the world as it is. I mean, I'll be honest, a little bit of background, and part of my own motivation here is that I have an airship, very proud of it, and I'd like to, keep it running. And I think this could be a, important feature and part of this. So, what you do with airships is you go around the world. I'm sure I'll find my way to Delamont.
Excellent.
That sounds
I have
like something I can do.
plenty of time, so whenever you're feeling up to it.
Oh, okay.
I'm content. And he gets up and walks around the table and says, "Well, if we'd like to proceed in this manner, I'm going to need some contributions from everyone here." People kind of like, you see the people around the table are like, and they rummage around in a side pack. They start pulling out like glass vials. You watch them one by one pull out small scalpels or daggers and like cut their hands and start pouring blood into vials independently. He looks over at you expectantly. He says, "Do you require a receptacle?"
I don't, and I'll conjure a receptacle, nice and glowing.
Yes.
And then, of course, bleed into it.
Yeah. You do that. He goes around and he pulls forth a small like iron basin, like it's like a pitted, old, almost rusted looking iron bowl, and he collects each of the receptacles from each person as he goes around, pours them all into the bowl, mixing them together.
Does Gowron have blood?
Gowron, when he gets to Gowron, Gowron, he holds up a finger, rummages around in a satchel, and pulls out a vial of what appears to be blood, but not his own. It's the Velcatrex pauses and says, "Is this of sufficient quality?" And Gowron says, "Yes, I had it predetermined. This is a willing participant at an earlier time for such an event. Be assured, it is of adequate quality." And Velcatrex says, "Fine, doesn't have to be fresh," and collects it, goes around the table, gets the rest of everyone's, takes yours, pours them all into this mixing bowl, stands at the far end of the table, and says, "All right, well, here's nothing. Here goes nothing. Elysium, was it? Ruderock?"
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we'll see how this goes. And then he just promptly tips it back and drinks the entire bowl. It's quite a lot of liquid, and he seems to relish the act. Again, everyone on the table looks a little bit uncomfortable. As he finishes and places down on the table, his eyes are closed, and he's just kind of paused for a minute. And then as his eyes go wide open, you see like a bright red light comes beaming out of his two eyes, and this horrible, deep voice comes out that you almost recognize. One second.
The Phoenix Path. That has to be new.
Oh no, that's pretty old.
The Phoenix Path?
That's from the
Interesting.
Phoenix in the desert.
Yeah, I remember. I just didn't realize it went all the way. They must have extended it somehow.
They did, yes.
Yeah,
That's the direct path from Avaricity to Moduli, and it was
That's
named
cool.
as such because of the lore.
That's cool.
Um, so as his eyes glow red, you hear the voice of Ruderok, which you temporarily met in Elysium, come through and says, "Who has asked of me these questions?" What questions do you ask?
Real fast, asking you. Are the others looking to me to ask the questions? Or
They're looking towards like you and Vexel. And Vexel looks at
Okay.
you. If you don't speak up promptly, she will.
all right, so we need to find out if there is a way. Okay, is there a way to translate the writing on that runic? What's the name? What was it called? The runic tableau that she had.
Mhm.
And I would refer to it as the tableau that she would have some title for, I'm sure.
Mhm.
So, is there a way to translate this dealio, and can you provide it?
He says, "You do not know our written language. Do you seek the cipher?"
Yes.
Very well. You see Velcatrax, like, his arms like jerk up and like get rigid, and he like reaches out, and one of his fingers elongates into a sharpened claw, just spontaneously, and he like slams down into the wooden tabletop. He starts rapidly scratching this incredibly complex rune, and he starts to walk as he keeps scribing along the edge of the tabletop, and all the other like mages get up and push out of the way as he proceeds to write down this incredibly complicated and very long string of hieroglyphics that are all connected, kind of like cursive, how it just keeps flowing from one to the next. It takes him about a minute of rapid scribbling and scratching, and then when it's complete, he pauses and says, "This is the cipher. With it, you can decipher the full extent of our language. Its intricacies are obvious to those who know it, but less so if you've never seen its like. What else do you ask of me?"
So the other wizards of this council, have they been informed of the Quintessahedrons?
Yes. Vexel brought that up.
How does one charge a Quintessahedron?
Ruderok
empower.
says, "I do not know the..." One second. Get my notes. Ruderok says, "I do not know the intricacies of the Quintessahedrons and how they were created or charged. I only know that they were the downfall of my race."
Ugh,
Um,
wonderful.
They
Downfall
were-
of the Velki and these guys. Oh, sounds like a bad deal.
the only thing I know of their nature was that they contain divine quintessence and are... that my society managed to harness this for our greatest works. Some of
Divine quintessence.
our number used it to ascend beyond the mortal realm to beyond, but in doing so, they also ruined everything.
Intriguing. So their name was actually accurate. I'm gonna go ahead and look at Vexel for the next question.
She's like staring back at you, and she says, "Huh? What is divine quintessence?" He says, "I don't truly know. Only our mages know that. But they were found, scattered across the realm, and perfected in these Quintessahedrons.
Do I have another question?
Sure.
Where or who has the information, has the information that we seek here on the mortal plane? So these questions we asked you that were difficult to answer, where can
Sure.
we find more information?
He says, in all the answers that you could find in your realm are those found in the ruins of my people, where our relics still reside, where our mechanisms still operate.
Huh.
The Quintessahedrons powered some of our greatest cities and greatest devices.
Is there a limit to the number of questions we have?
No?
Okay, that makes it easier. So, how many Quintessahedrons are you aware of exist?
I don't know the number. At one time, there were at least 30 or 40. But with the ascendancy of my fellows, that number was greatly reduced. Yes. Sorry. We are now nearing the end of our discussion. You see Valkatrex is like still channeling the spirit, but it's like his eyes are flickering red, and he's like twitching a bit.
Okay. So, I was down in the pit, and I saw that there were many ascendants there that had been petrified, as best described. What foe and how did they come to be, like, attacking you? What caused this calamity from these Quintessahedrons? What can you tell me about this calamity?
Our most powerful and wise clerics and mages sought to surpass all prior limits, and they did, at great cost to the rest of us.
So suggesting that, like, basically there were side effects of the spellcasting that...
Right. So logs, you get the insight that whatever rituals that the Ascendants managed to pull off back in the day, using these Quintessahedrons, and whatever they were doing with their technology, it did something that caused them to ascend, but likely destroyed everything else. Yeah.
Got it. The cost of their ascendancy was the destruction of their immortal
civilization.
Society. Yeah. So just don't do that with your Quintessahedrons.
All right. With that last question, the flickering red light goes out, and Velkastrux kind of slumps forward for a second. Then he whips his head back, and he has you can see his eyes are now glowing. Like they're more feral. They're kind of slit, reddish eyes with like a faint glow to them. And he kind of whips them around a couple times and says, it's been a good moment since I've done that one. Thanks for the donations, everyone. It does require a certain amount of arcane blood to pull that one off correctly. And he like blinks a couple times, and they just revert back to like a natural kind of pleasant brown. And he says, "Anyway, as you were, what did I say?" And Vexel gets him up to speed.
Do any of the others have any insight or thoughts or questions they would have asked?
There is a lot of discussion. As you might imagine, a council of some of the most powerful magical people on the planet are very intrigued by this discussion of ancient artifacts and ascension to post-mortal existence. You do hear some really interesting comments from everyone from Gowron about like cautionary tales of like, you got to be careful. We're dabbling with technology we don't understand, and you hear Spinel saying like, that's just hubris to try and to change your fate and accept your mortal limits. And other people like Velcatrax are like, hey, I mean, it's not that bad living forever. And so on and so forth.
Lives forever.
There's not any specific insights that you get from this conversation. It's more just overwhelming as you like listen to them all like argue back and forth about like, what does it mean? What's the significance of all this?
So, have any of them encountered someone trying to ascend?
There's a couple looks around the table. Spinel speaks up and says, well, I did encounter during my early days with my peers, a long time around the time I met Gowron here, a Velkian mage who attempted to utilize the technology of our day to ascend to godhood, if you will, at the cost of many cities of people. He attempted to leverage their very souls as a price to pay to move to the next level of existence with his peers as well. We stopped him and saved them, but you've heard of the dissident what's the word looking for?
So, yes, the distance. I remember them now. So, you said he was a Velkian mage.
He was.
I had sort of thought the Velkians were all perished and long since gone.
Well,
how did he come to be here?
That's sort of my fault, unfortunately.
Oh, I have another story.
Yeah, she explains the history where essentially the dissidents put themselves into like time preservation pods and went to sleep waiting for such an era where technology had advanced enough that they'd be able to achieve their goals. They were awakened early by Spinel and her friends and were frustrated to learn that the Velkian society had in fact collapsed and technology was even further behind than it was during their day. So instead of that, they sought out the a item called the Lapis Arcanum, which was not previously brought up. Vexel perks up when she says that and says like, I don't know this part. Spinel says, well, this part isn't talked about. The Lapis Arcanum is completely inert and gone from the realm. Is a little significance. And Vexel says, actually, I think it's very, very significant. Can you please elaborate? And yeah, Spinel goes a bit more detail she doesn't tell everything that she knows, obviously, but mentions that it was a magical artifact she encountered that was once at the center of Velkian society. A rock, a powerful magical rock that seemed to have an endless source of energy, but it was eventually drained by the sustained banishment of a specific entity known as Hemdorak the Merciless, along with many other planar monsters that once wreaked havoc upon the realm during the Velkian Enclave era days.
These are all connected.
You and Vexel are just like staring at each other across the table.
Who originally cast the spell to banish these planar creatures and this dragon?
Spinel looks at everyone and says, well, we are all bound to secrecy here, and since he is no longer with us, I don't foresee it being a problem. Professor Fumari, you knew him. She's like, what? She says, Emperor Birindul was the original mage. He was long-lived with his time with the Lapis, but as its power diminished, so did his lifespan, and he passed from this realm shortly before he saw the conclusion of these events. And Professor Fumari is like, I had no idea. He was that old? He was a Velkian? And more discussion and hubbub continues from there.
I know we already... Oh, never mind. So, interesting. I'll bet you that Mr. Emperor Birindul and these dissidents know a lot more about this Lapis Arcanum that could be used to possibly, you know, maybe recreate a little bit the energy production that these Quintessahedrons are using.
Well, if this lapis, Spinel, what was there any specific kind of theme to it? Was it a type of magic or anything? And Spinel says, well, I don't recall. It just seemed to be like a near bottomless source of arcane power to draw from. But it did seem particularly effective with banishment and that type of magic.
This be like abjuration, sort of.
Yeah. Again, Vexel looks at you for a moment and she says, "Is it possible that the Velkian society built their technology on this Lapis Arcanum, but that was only a stepping stone to perhaps what the Ascendants managed in their time, this divine quintessence that was just told about to us? Perhaps these are one and the same, or different forms of the same thing?" And the mages kind of argue amongst themselves further. You reflect on what was told to you in the extraplanar communication with Ruderok, and he did mention that the Quintessahedrons were formed from divine quintessence that was found scattered across the land and forged into something different, something better.
The Quintessahedrons.
So it seems.
Interesting. So divine quintessence is something you can find. Here. Here. So
I'll say also, Darren, as you say that, you remember Archmage Flixtawill's writings about the Velkian society and how, that little footnote, the picture he drew, is kind of like the whole city built up around a single stone, like the glowing stone that was the heart of the entire society.
So the Velkian enclave that collapsed because of Himdorak. Apparently their primary city was in the parched lands. If I'm not mistaken, the capable crew was the ones that found this. That would be you, Spinel.
Correct.
My understandings from Professor Archmage Flixtawill's writings was that they built that society around this Lapis Arcanum, which suggests to me that maybe that is something I'd like to research. Can we go check out these ruins?
Well, certainly. If you wish to look at them, I could take you to them. From my understanding, they've been thoroughly picked over. There is not much left to discover. They're mostly collapsed, full of sand. The occasional purple worm. There were some strange magical deterrents that were cycling around the city for ages, but my friends and I, we disabled them in our attempt to find the ruins, and now I believe the purple worms have run rampant and since then destroyed most of the ruins.
Oh. Well, that's too bad.
The sonic deterrent trains that you guys blew up.
Yeah, I remember those. They almost murdered someone. I forget who. I don't think it was me. It was me.
Might have been me.
Those were creepy. Interesting. So maybe a visit right now wouldn't be such a useful thing. But I think there's got to be something there that's related. Maybe they've got some lore there that we could research that wasn't found before.
Possibly.
Also, they have these pink crystals the Velkian enclaves do. They're created somewhere. I imagine they're intended to be like these Quintessahedrons. Did you find anything in the Moduli ruins that would be associated with this production, perhaps?
Crystal production. No, but we did find a mechanism for charging said crystals. They had a magically enchanted giant skeleton on a rotating wheel that he was perpetually generating power for the facility. Unfortunately, we also destroyed that one too. Which actually
Where was
reminds you of the treadmill-like apparatus you guys found in the ruins up in the top of the
Yeah.
Dark Spires.
So the Velkians were actually remarkably primitive and used
Treadmills. Hamster wheels
Treadmills.
for all of their power
hamster
generation.
wheels to power their entire society.
When they were separated from the Lapis Arcanum, that was what they had to fall back to as secondary energy
Yes,
production.
That's right. That's right.
It's like firing up your wood stove when you don't have power connected.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so gotta find out what this divine quintessence is. See if we can harvest it from something. Honestly, it sounds like it might be soul juice, because the dissidents basically just suck the souls from people to power their ascendancy. I'm guessing it was not that terribly different from the power that was used to make these Quintessahedrons. Somehow I think it's a little bit less violent than that, but something
Possibly.
similar.
But also, given the comments of what happened to the Ascendant society upon the ascendancy of their select few, maybe it's just as violent.
Yeah, it was a bunch of float stone and flying airships worth of the eradication of some small civilizations. Yeah.
No, but we do need to know more about the Quintessahedrons and how they work, what they do.
Well, it's clear that the last two great civilizations came crashing down because of these, and it sounds like a cycle to me. So this is a case of understand it, control it, don't let it happen again.
This is true. Strobogast speaks up and he says, to fail to learn from the folly of our ancestors is to repeat them yet again, the same ones. Is that an outright Vexel? And Vexel's like, yeah, I was just going to say that. That's kind of my line. I'm the Archmage of Antiquity. Thanks, dude. And he says, anyway, my point being, I hope none of you here have aspirations of greater power. We all have achieved these heights through our own merit and hard work. And to misuse these potential devices would be calamitous to our current world as it is. We're not special. We're just gifted. And we've got to do this right. So I think that concludes our meeting. Vexel, you should pursue this further. We trust that you'll keep us in the loop. And if there's any important developments that need our assistance, you absolutely should ask us first before you proceed. Use the cipher, and you look at the cipher. It's just absolute nonsense gibberish all over the table. But use this, and perhaps use it to gain further insight into the nature of these devices. If you find something important, don't take any big steps before letting us know, so we can prepare in case things go poorly, based on your choices.
Hey, we're gonna activate it and ascend now. Bye. Oh shit!
No, wait.
We let you know first.
Kevin says, well, just be sure to let me know. I want to be there and watch whatever happens. And Vexel says, yep, we'll be sure to do that, Kevin. As always, your presence is welcome and much appreciated. Kevin grunts.
So, I'm a little curious. So, oh, never mind. That's right. She's with the Resnor. Okay. I wanted to ask if that drow woman was actually whether she was from Resnor Dominion or from below, and apparently she's from the Dominion.
Yeah, you picked up from the introductions that she is one of the noble houses. Just like Kaz's mom is Duchess de Taurus, she's Duchess of a different noble house, one of the other major cities, probably Vatlos.
Got it. So maybe Demiria shouldn't try that one.
Not in her presence, no.
Yeah, she's like, I happen to know there is no such house in my city. Oh shit.
I know literally everyone who has that last name, and you're not one of them.
Yeah. Oh. Okay. So. I would like to talk further with Spinel and Gowron, since they were there, about Ektrexelon.
Yes,
Before
they also...
everybody just bails.
Yeah, before they leave, they're like, this comes up in the conversation. They're like, okay, well, this is what Vexel summoned us for, but let's also discuss this pressing issue of this deific dragon that is currently sleeping comfortably atop God's Gate volcano. And they begin to discuss. Benel and Gyron give their account and mention you again. And you see a lot of the people in the room starting to like reconsider their initial approximations of you. Like, you were present. You released 2 of their members from a present of their own making. You were present for the release of this dragon god. You slew Therium, an archmage, and you're now sitting here wearing his robes. This person they didn't recognize.
Super edgy right there.
Right.
Killed him
the
wearing
dead
his robes.
skin of your victims.
So
It's like scalps.
Maybe I should have thought about that.
Anyway, yeah. So what do you? They give a good. They bring up like a whole summary of the event so far. And Spinel mentions that he is getting restless. He is currently moving about more. The dragons that seem to be hanging out around him they're definitely like gathering, but they're still not doing much. Some of the local villages at the base of the volcano, like the small native tribes, have been like immediately destroyed. But
you know, it would be really convenient to actually figure out how these Quintessahedrons work, so we can use one to like banish him, just like they did him in Dorak.
Could be
because honestly, that sounds like a good solution to this. But I don't think we can just sit here forever, because he'll wake up and be like, "I'm hungry," and then, tear apart the closest, city.
Spinel speaks up and says, regarding the banishment idea, while I'm generally in support of that idea, it didn't seem to work. He didn't stay asleep when they cast the spell. Dorak didn't stay banished when he got banished. These things do have a time limit, and it's not really fair to postpone these issues 500 years in the future. But I like the line of thought. Perhaps there is some way we can further understand the nature of these things and how they work to do this properly.
Well, how did we resolve the last dragon banishment problem?
Well, we killed it.
That possible in this case?
Maybe?
Does
maybe.
Anyone know how to kill dragon gods?
It's the sort of thing that he does seem to be a living creature, but then again, what isn't? And what isn't? What is life? What is death? I mean...
Yeah. Have gods been avatared before?
Well, let me think about it.
Avatared?
The general consensus is that after the gods were created, and the centuries of war and chaos that ensued after that, the gods were mutually all banished from the realm and chose to live outside of it. And so this dragon god being here is an exception to the rule and kind of a problem, because he doesn't have a balancing force to kind of keep that in check. And so there are no descriptions of gods being killed by mortal means. There's legends of gods being killed by other gods, but that's about it.
Okay, well then maybe the right choice here is, if we're not going to delay it with a Quintessahedron style move, pick the correct deity to beseech for help.
Everyone here is like a mage, and they kind of look around a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, I understand. We're not generally the most devout folks.
Right. They look at each other and like, well, none of us have personally met any gods, but I don't think we could it's not our wheelhouse to ask direct help from the deities. That might be.
I met a very powerful cleric recently, and she was very well in good contact with her deity. Probably appropriate in this case, as a goddess of the oceans. But what was her name? She's a water genasi from Lutetia. Yes.
Oh yes.
Professor Zamari, you would know her.
Yes, she is a respected storm researcher in the temples of Uthoran. Certainly, she could be a person to beseech for her insights into the nature of the divines and their preferences.
Yes, because it strikes me that as much as I'd rather not involve other great powers, historically this seems like the correct way to go about it.
You're not wrong. Well, we can do both. Spinel speaks up and says, I will reach out to Lady Elsinora, as you suggested, and get her insights into possible divine intervention, if you will. They all kind of like scoff at the word. But in the meantime, let's pursue more promising avenues, such as that of these Quintessahedrons and their potential applications in this regard. Anything else we should discuss? Otherwise, we look forward to hearing an update on your research. Yeah.
Hey, yeah. If you guys have any questions for me, feel free to send me. Basically, hand out my cell phone number.
We can do that. Before we exit, though, we do have to complete our mutual rebinding. If everyone's agreed, they all nod and they all pull out. Some of them pull out. Some just start spellcasting. Gios. They're all Giosing each other, including you.
Damn it! I can't do it to them.
Yeah, that's okay. You are given a Gios spell scroll to cast it on someone else. Well, you're casting it right now. You're gonna burn it. So.
I know, but give me 6 hours, guys.
Nope, gotta do it right now.
Okay.
You all mutually Gios each other to tell no one of your associations and only operate in secret. Continue to maintain this promise of mutual cooperation and truthfulness with each other. So it's a much more thorough and binding sort of Gios than the previous one was. And you all see that they're very used to this, but it's the first time you've been implicated in this way. And you get the sense it's going to be hard to explain what you did the past couple days to your friends without directly breaking some of your discussions and contracts here.
I studied a lot. Here's the information I figured out.
So, fast forwarding from there, eventually they all leave. Velcatrax stops and places his hand on your shoulder and says, "Do come visit. I promise it'll be worth your time. But I have a lot of really interesting stuff for a young up-and-coming wizard such as yourself."
What sort of feeling do I get from his hand when he puts it on my shoulder?
It's
Is it
cold.
just kind of like whatever. Or okay.
It's just, his hand's kind of cold.
Can I try to divine maybe his real intention with visiting? Is it just oh yeah, visit and hang out and be friends, or is it more like a I want to suck your blood?
Make an insight check.
Oh, cat.
25.
Yeah, pretty good.
Uh,
I've had the whole meeting to think about this.
Honestly, it seems like both. It seems like you're with the 25. Oh, kitty. You are the fresh blood at the table, so to speak. And to a person like Velcatrax, that is appealing in a lot of different ways. You get the sense he wants to know more about you. He wants to potentially have you in his favor. He wants to potentially also suck your blood. It's all the above. It's nuanced. It's a little creepy, a little gross. Yeah, it's not. You're not quite sure how to feel about it. It doesn't make you feel good. That's for sure.
Okay. Well, I will visit for sure. I'll send you when I'm going to be there.
Sure. And no rush. You have some important stuff to deal with right now.
Yes, and I fully expect to have a very long time to learn stuff and make decisions and go places. So, much like yourself.
Indeed. I'll be waiting.
Okay.
They all leave one by one and go off on the elevator and disappear.
Exposition explosion.
Yeah. You're definitely getting the biggest lore dump all for this session. So you end up sitting alone with Vexel on this table. You're both staring down at the scribed glyphs that have been carved by Velcatrex's possessed claw hand.
So I would like to copy them at the very least, so I can study them on my own time if we can't do it tonight.
Make an intelligence saving throw.
Well, with advantage because of it's probably been longer than an hour. But is it a spell?
It's a magical effect.
I suppose it's only against spells. So I have Intellect Fortress lasts 1 hour.
It's been over an hour.
Okay, fuck. Okay, I got a 3 on my die, which is a 12.
It's okay. You probably wanted to fail this anyway. As you are staring down at this thing, this crazy kind of rambling runes, hieroglyphics that are interconnected, it is very crisp and complete. All the runes that you saw when you were looking through the various ruins were very like sparse and kind of just like chunks of words that you deciphered, like Hair Kavindi, and like that was it. Here you see the interconnections. You see these like fractal patterns as they branch off and then connect again, looping into themselves. And as you stare at this, you feel a little bit woozy, and you feel lightheaded, and then you pass out. About 30 seconds later, you're slapped awake by Vexel, and she says, What'd you do?" And as you look up at her, you still see like an after image of the various loops and spirals and fractals kind of burned into your retinas, but they fade slowly until you feel like you're yourself again. Congratulations, you just learned Ascendancy, the language of the Ascendants in its full amount.
Yay!
Just from this cipher, this magical glyph that was emblazoned in front of you. Vexel, on the other hand, has not quite yet had that experience.
She's too tough of mind.
Yeah, and she says, what just happened?
I understand.
I know, Ascendant.
Yeah, I'm better at. I'm better at. Crap. Okay.
Being a historian than you.
Yeah, archaeology than you are.
She says, wait a second. If you explain that, she's like, that's no, I don't. I refuse to accept this. She goes over, like, stares at it really hard. You see it like begin to glow as she stares at it, and then she's like, oh, like passes out.
Nice. Just let it be. Accept it. Oh,
She's
yes.
still passed out.
Slap her awake in exchange.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean. Wow. Okay, that's useful. That's quite the shortcut.
Yeah.
How did I never think about using regular divining of people from the past to infer the missing pieces of historical research? Why did I not specialize in necromancy? God damn it.
You know, it occurs to me that typically that stuff is like always it's in the divine realm. It's not really our shtick.
That's true. But all the clerics are always so secretive about their mystic secrets.
Oh, holier than thou too.
Exactly.
Judgmental pricks.
Well,
anywho,
that's good to know. This new knowledge that we have, this is going to make things so much easier. I really want to go back and inspect that fresco outside of town again.
Yes. I still have a couple days. I will go with you.
Excellent. It's still only like 2 p.m. She says it's maybe an hour's walk. I have fresh horses. We can ride out and be back before sundown if you want.
Let's go.
All right. You ride down to the first floor. She walks across Slate Way. You've been here a few times, and she snaps her fingers at a random guard who nods at her, runs off, and then 30 seconds later, he runs back up with 2 fresh horses, saddled and with bridled and saddled. That's not saddled.
I understand exactly what you meant.
Yeah. You hop on and ride out of town with Vexel, galloping northeast, and like she said, about half an hour later, you are just riding out across this open, desolate patch of grass. It's like dry grass and dead stuff. This entire area around Slate Way is pretty much just barren. It's not a desert, but it's just nothing grows out here. Just like twigs and dead grass and rocks. You keep riding for a while, and then you see a small like outcropping, kind of hidden by some shrubs. she gets off, and you follow her, and she takes you down into this small crevasse that kind of descends deeper, and eventually opens up into a small cave mouth. Following her down to the cave mouth, you find...
Oh, I didn't think of that. Oh.
All right. The light from behind illuminates the way, but Vexel leads you further into the darkness. She says it's across this ravine, or this chasm. I found this while exploring on my own, and the ruins were quite fascinating. You do see some bones here and there of small animals and deer and whatnot that have wandered in here and gotten crushed or died. And she takes you across a bridge made of stone that you can see there's a large chasm down and around to the side that goes into darkness. She says, I have flown down there. It descends even deeper into the Underdark. I try to avoid going too deep on my own. I'm sure you're aware of the dangers.
Is this connected to the pit?
I believe it probably does at some point. I was unwilling to delve all the way down on my own, just like I was unwilling to go into the ruins on my own. But that's the advantage of having peers with you. Here we are. And she walks up to a large stone wall, and using magical light, she illuminates it next to her, showing you what she's looking at. You see a massive, probably like 20 by 20 foot wall of stone that's covered in hieroglyphics and markings. At the base of it, you see, coming up out of the stone, a familiar kind of pouch. Not a pouch, like a receptacle. Reminds you of the pipes that kind of jutted up out of the ground at the bottom of Vexel's pit. That where the thermosiphon core had been nestled before Demiria ripped it out and shredded the pipes herself. Vexel says, this is the location where I found the vitality core. It was glowing a green aura, and I removed it without any too much difficulty. But
I have to ask, is this like a bloodstain?
She looks down. Possibly. It could be blood. It could be rust deposits from the dripping water.
Rust deposits. It just occurred to me that the I'm going to call it the lava siphon core, was essentially mounted in a volcano. The source of its energy was there. The vitality core, as you put it, being a necromantic in nature and with skeletons and what looks like bloodstains on the ground, it seems like there might be a crypt or something around here, perhaps, that's like charging it, or originally was.
She pauses and thinks about that. She says, that's a good point. I didn't really consider the source of what would have charged it over time. Again, I found it fully charged. I presumed it's been this way for eons. Zephyr, make a nature check for me. Or a insight check, your pick.
Insight, I guess. 24.
You reflect on your ride coming here, on the entire region around Slateway, which is dead and brush. There's not a lot that grows out here. This entire area is, dare you say, unnaturally barren. And you reflect on this as you look around you, and Vexel's still staring at the bloodstains, thinking about ritual sacrifice, but you have the insights probably a bit bigger than that.
Maybe it's a bit bigger than that. I'm gonna alert her to the insight I had about the local wildlife being mostly dead.
She says, oh man, you could be right. I wonder if you've considered that. I just thought that was a naturally occurring region of high, arid, low rainfall and like natural diversification, and like just this is a scrubland. But now that you mention it, we get plenty of rain year round, and if you go maybe 4 or 5 miles further west of the edge of that parched area, then it's actually fairly lush. Good number of trees.
I would not like to test this, but if we were to recreate some contraption and stick it out in a lush zone, I wonder if your vitality orb would recharge. Much the same way that Aerocrest's orb is currently sucking the life out of their lodestone.
It's possible. It is possible. I don't know why. It seems like perhaps when it gets low, these Quintessahedrons do have some kind of reabsorption property with the levitation core, like you mentioned. That those floatstone must have come from the levitation core at some point. It seems likely, or at least they're like mutually balanced somehow. There's some give and take there. I'm not sure what it is. So, like you mentioned, the fact that our vitality core might be empty here, that could be concerning as to the potential effects.
Well, let's go ahead and read this, and then we'll make a decision after we've learned something.
Sure. Yes, you look at the fresco. It is badly damaged from age. There's like chunks falling down. Vexel quickly explains what she's already deciphered by pointing it out, but you see there's missing chunks. I need you to make... You can read it now. This seems to be some kind of... It's instructions. It's a description of how this center is linked to the one in Greymoor. You get, like, coordinates, for lack of a better word. This is what she was able to decipher before, of the sister location, and how this has been separated from the sister location to keep the Herkivendi away from a resurrection source that they have here. And they have, like, back and forth.
Keep it away from the thing that she definitely used.
Yeah, exactly. She's like, I didn't get that part the first time around. Anyway, moving on. You continue reading between the lines. There's also chunks that are missing. You go around and start picking up, like, pieces of stone that have flaked off and using, like, Mage Hand to put them back and try to piece together the actual message now that you know how things are supposed to flow. Make a Intelligence or Arcana check.
Arcana check.
With advantage, because Vexel's helping you.
Thank you, Vexel. You gave me 2 points.
You infer from this list, from this instruction manual, if you will, of what's going on here, as well as the existing knowledge you have. Yeah, kind of what was already been discussed. This, they call it a Quintessahedron. It contains the divine essence of life. Divine quintessence of life is what it says here. Life energy. And its purpose is to recharge. This is a recharging station that they built specifically to siphon life energy into this particular Quintessahedron. It was previously discharged for some reason, and however many thousands of years after the fact it got left here, it did in fact recharge enough to when Vexel found it to be fully charged.
I'll bet you it was discharged to eliminate the Herkivendi.
Possibly.
Oopsie.
Okay. Yep. Yep. I'm checking all my notes here, making sure I've gotten you all the lore dump I intended to.
Gotta complete the lore dump before you bring the monsters.
Yes. Quintessahedrons are rechargeable. That much is something you pick up on it. They have a set capacitance that is enormous, but it is possible to fill and remove and empty it. And you get that these mechanisms, these pipes coming out of the ground, are just incredibly complex. There's no way you could ever replicate something of this magnitude. Based on the way you see like the diagram kind of spinning out, this mechanism stretches for probably 10 miles radius in every direction beneath the earth, reaching up and like gathering the life energy from all around. Not the sort of thing you could easily reproduce.
I suppose if you were recharging this here, you wouldn't want to live here at the same time.
Yes. And then... you do see that there are references to... There's 3 references to other sister locations. One of which is the subterranean city, which you've already found.
Right, because that was where the thermal siphon quote.
And the other, and in Greymore, which is the one you already found as well. The third one, that is not one you recognize, is listed as Astral Highway Gate number 2.
Astral Highway Gate number 2. Cat, move. Gotta move the feline off my keyboard. Astral Highway Gate number 2. Awesome.
You see that there's also like a brief list of its itinerary under the Astral Highway Gate number 2. It says that it's a list of coordinates that seem to
my god
be from your understanding, and you're pointing this out to Vexel. You roll a 23. She's like, wait, I need to draw a quick map. She does some calculations, and she says, okay, this seems to be spherical coordinates. This is Athendria. It seems to be points and dates. She points out different locations, different times. You make the connection.
I only need to pick out one.
You make the connection here that this is a looping series of coordinates that seem to jump in their timing, but it seems like every day there's about a dozen or so locations that are on this list that move every day.
Every day. So my theory, which is gotta be true, right? Is that the Astral Highway Gate number 2 is located on Stjarnheim. And so if it were my theory true, that's why it's popping around. But if it's got specific locations, it would be going to regular spots. It wouldn't suddenly appear in places you didn't expect it to. Which it kind of did? I don't know. Did it?
With 23, you cross-reference. You witnessed Stjarnheim pop into view over Greymore twice.
Yeah.
The only 2 times you've seen it has been off the coast of Greymore. The second time you were in an airship flying over Greymore. First time you were in Greymore. As you reference this list of coordinates, that's about the 7th one on the list. Roughly in the area of Greymore.
Well, gotta be true then. I will look at Vexel and say, I've got it. or what's his name? Sherlock Holmes and...
I know exactly what you mean. His helper, dude.
I can't remember his
not
name.
A detective. He's just a cool guy.
Dr. Watson.
Watson.
I've got it, Watson. Yes. Except that she's probably more like Sherlock in this case, but
yes.
Whatever.
Well, you're kind of Sherlock now too. You're both Sherlock.
Yes, together we have discovered it.
So you believe that this has got to be a Stjarnheim, you're saying?
Yes. Based on the timing and coordinates, this lines up perfectly with the location that I observed Stjarnheim twice as it was teleporting near Greymore, actually.
Wild. Did you tell her about the thing you saw through Therion's
I guess maybe I should.
telescope?
I will.
You bring it up.
Yeah.
She has no further insight for you, but she says, that is interesting.
It concerns me, though, because now I think about this. Astral Highway, right? That implies that like the astral plane is much more vast than what we're doing here in our material plane.
True.
Um, it's possible that at some point in the distant past, maybe not on its current itinerary, that this gate and Stjernheim were popping around in different places, and maybe it left behind some of the city.
It's very possible. It's hard to tell with these kinds of timescales when things happen or not.
Does the itinerary have any locations that are abnormal?
You quickly do some thinking with Vexel and identify them as evenly spaced coordinates around the entire globe. They are seemingly picked as opportunistic positions on the planet for whatever purpose they designed this for. But like, you have Greymoor, and then like on the southeastern edge, you see off by the boiling reef, there's another spot, and then there's like, they're just everywhere. They're all across the globe, and there's probably probably 14 or so, like 2 weeks worth of coordinates.
Okay. So none of them are off planet.
None that you can see. Not on this list, no.
Okay. Assuming it's a complete list. Got it. Interesting. And the Velki were onto it, because that's where I found this in the Velki, and they had the identified locations where
Right, they were tracking
stuff was going
Stjernheim,
on.
but they didn't know what its purpose was. I believe you've also read the term astral highway somewhere else previously.
I'd have to do a check for that.
It's okay if you don't recall it. We'll have to pick this up with everyone and see if people can rack their brains. But I believe that you read about it somewhere. It might have been the Underground City, some reference to it. Well,
yeah, I definitely don't remember.
big picture. You gather up all this information. You try to hold it all in your mind, this massive deep dive into these materials, these people that you've met and the insights they've given you. As you sit there now with Zephyr, or with Vexel, and ruminate on all this stuff, you feel like with these coordinates, even if you can't accurately predict where it's going to be at any given point in time, you can at least be prepared to intercept it at a given location, given its repeatability.
Yeah. Well, we've got one particular that we know it's going to be at eventually, right?
Exactly. You've learned about the divine quintessence. You don't know what that is, but you know that it was something that was once scattered across the realm. Potentially, this Lapis Arcanum was one such instance of this. The rest were refined into these Quintessahedrons and leveraged by the Ascendants to do incredible things before their ascendancy to godhood. And all this
There are
taken...
some gods we could ask to face against Trexelon.
Potentially, yeah. That seems to be about it. You still don't know how to use these, but your one remaining open thread is perhaps Stjernheim, where there seems to be some ongoing utilization of these devices.
Right. I'll bet you that it's more preserved than most of these ruins we've found. Only problem being, of course, that there are theoretically a bunch of cloud giants up there that are like waiting to smush us.
Right. That would require a good degree of stealth, perhaps.
As much as I like the sky and studied aeromancy and all that, I don't know anything about cloud giants.
Well, perhaps you can read about that in the remainder of our time here. You had about a week. It's only been a couple days. You could spend the rest of your week reading about cloud giants.
That could be useful. We've also got to study Mind Blank. Haha.
That too. All right. Is there anything else you wish to talk about at this moment before you return to the tower?
I don't think so. What is this thing here?
It's a broken piece of wood. I wouldn't read into it.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
I just had a vaguely cool map that I wanted to use for this.
It is a sweet map, and the music is actually really good for the background.
All right. So you return to the tower, And
Oh, I was definitely expecting monsters to attack me.
well, no worries. You already had the
Not
monster
this
attack
time.
you in the tower.
Yeah.
I
It just
was
seemed like there was a map, and it was creepy, and there was like, oh.
I had two possible encounters for this session. One would be that one, the other one would be this one. But I decided to go with that one. All right. So you return to the tower, and you spend the next several days learning from Vexel with the appropriate cost of gold the spell Mind Blank, which you then transcribe into your notebook.
8th level?
Yeah, 8th level.
400.
Ching.
So I used to be a relatively moderately wealthy wizard, and I'm a poor wizard again.
Yep. A poor wizard with connections.
Yeah, so many connections.
And you do some reading about Clyde Giants. Make a investigation check for me.
Open. Investigation. 24.
Yeah, 24. With the exception of the Storm Giants, they are the most reclusive and difficult to learn about of the giant societies. Because they are so aloof, and they're... Besides Yarnaheim, which is like vaguely rumored about, they're not known to really live anywhere except for maybe like mountaintops in remote parts of the world. They are rumored to be have a very rigid social hierarchy of like they're rumored to have like a king and a queen and like a very they care a lot about social status, and they seem to have a very sophisticated like sense of social standing and like performance. That they're very much more what's the word I'm looking for?
Is it
performative?
Feudal or caste?
Yeah, not like quite caste system, but like your demeanor and behavior amongst your peers is like what directly determines your social standing. So like your etiquette, yeah, etiquette and performative social behavior are like the foundations of their Cloud Giant society. So they're very, very particular about how everything goes. They're also incredibly hostile to outsiders. So that's something else that they pick up.
I've perfected my ability to understand Cloud Giant society. Let's go do it. And they're just like, kill.
So
I spent so much time and smash.
You get the sense that if you were able to infer what their particular etiquette might require or like demand, there's a chance you could interface with them. But if you come soaring up to their front door and knock, they might just crush you. So it has to be the right kind of approach. But you don't know what that is, because anyone who's ever tried just gets crushed.
Yeah. Crap. Well, there's always the option of just crushing them first. So
that is an option.
Not an easy one, though. All right, then. So I think I got pretty much everything I really wanted to learn here.
Yeah. I was going to say that can wrap up our session here. I think that would be the end of what I had planned.
Yeah, I did. I was covered everything I wanted to pull out of it. So I guess there's one last thing I can talk to Vexel about. Since, I mean, obviously the Ocularis Exaltaris isn't actually going to make a decision about who the Archmage is going to be for Lysanor. But she and Strobogast would have, very obvious interest in that.
Right.
And we talked about it a little bit before, but I just wanted to make sure that there was some plan for that. Because I have a vested interest in not allowing Lysanor to become the same thing all over again.
Yeah, it's going to be run by the heads of the colleges for now. They're letting it just be an open position, and they're going to let things calm down, let everyone catch their breath and not be all angry, let Lysanor do some restructuring before they appoint a formal head to the role of Archmage. That's more, they want to disassemble Theriun's power hierarchy, and then when it's now more of a symbolic position, less of like a, fascist leadership position, then they'll put someone back.
Yeah.
Democratize it a bit.
Cool.
But they're going to take their time. And she's aware of your concerns and would certainly be wanting to avoid another Therian.
And I want to clarify that I don't actually... I'm only discussing this because I want to make sure that it's resolved properly, not because I want to be the Archmage.
Right.
I wouldn't necessarily decline if I had to be, but it's not something that I'm
what
actually shooting for.
Right. Didn't kill Therian to supplant him, but to save...
It's not actually my
Lysanor.
ambition, it's just keep Lysanor secure.
Right.
Because that would be total waste.
Right. Just do it again.
Yeah.
Here I go, kill him again.
Well, the new one, right? He's just a smarter archmage, and he's instead of necromancy, he's a crazy evoker or something like that. I don't know. Or even worse, a divination wizard. Ugh.
I think that was one of his specialties. Anyway, all right. So several more days pass. You get comfortable in Vexel's tower. You really do develop your relationship with Vexel. She's pretty cool. She, whatever informal or more formal relationship you had before, you come out of this week being much more friendly and amicable towards Vexel, and you feel like you've gained respect from her as well, given your mutual experiences, your interaction with the secret society, and her observation of your inherited just talent and earned skill that you demonstrate through the work with your time together.
So, actually, on the topic of making friends amongst powerful wizards, I want to ask her, this would be the last thing I care about right now, I want to ask her what her opinion is on Velcatrex and his invitation to visit in
Delamont.
Yes, Delamont.
She says, well, it's a double-edged sword. Velcatrex is well-connected, very wealthy, and has some access to a lot of more edgy schools of magic that you typically won't find taught or advertised in most standard schools. He consorts with sanguimancers, blood hunters, werewolves, vampires, people of those clans. And, well, I don't recommend their approach. You can see that they can be highly effective when used correctly. So, what I'm trying to say is, I can't recommend him as a consort or a friend, but for those seeking power, power is always appealing on its own worth, but there are often a cost that comes with it. So I can't tell you what to do in that regard. You're not the first one he's extended invitations to in that manner, but he's never offered that to me, and I know I would probably turn him down since the things that he studies are not really my interest. But
I definitely understand your mindset there. I was just thinking that actually, if you might consider cultivating a relationship with him, not that I know him that well, you obviously know him better, just because of the power of being able to communicate with long dead
That's a really good point. You're right. That is a really good point. I am going to have to think about that. I haven't considered that spell before because it does sometimes drive you insane for a while. A major drawback. For whatever reason, his approach seems to negate that possible outcome. So that's...
Unless he's just already insane.
Right. Unless that. So,
But he handles it well.
Right.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind. Thank you for the advice. I feel like I will visit him because there's a lot of stuff to do in this world, experience-wise. But I will be very careful because he's clearly somewhat dangerous.
Indeed. All right. Well, it's been fun having a guest for this long. I've never actually done that. These
Thanks for having me, man.
Empty ivory tower.
Gal.
Benefits from friend. Dudette.
Dudette.
Anyway, she shakes your hand, bids you good luck, and says, if you make plans, let me know what they are, and I'd be happy to help however I can, but I'll continue my work here, and I'll let you know if I come across any further revelations.
Same, I will do the same. Got you on speed send.
Speeds. The little spell slot.
At this point, we need spending stones. What do you know about crafting spending stones?
I can make them. It'll take me a little bit. If you want to come back here in, say, 2 weeks, I can make a set for us.
All right. If you want some... You want some funds to make this more...
No, I can
equivalent.
afford this.
Poor wizard.
I'll pull some requisitions and get the ingredients I need.
Actually, this is a good thing as well. It's like, what's your method for making money? Because I need to come up with one. We're just scrambling for cash.
As the appointed archmage, I levy taxes on the local townsfolk and collect.
I changed my
funds.
mind. I want to be the archmage.
I want tax money.
That's not a bad. Just so I can buy more. Damn it.
That passive income stream.
Responsibility. Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense.
All right. Well, she escorts you to the teleportation room, and she thanks you for your visit, and you return to Drakengard with teleportation magic to reunite with your friends and proceed into the future.
And craft a almighty lie about how I've learned everything.
How you learned all these magical things, and definitely don't mention anyone else that came up during this time.
Well, I'll just tell them that I went spelunking and learned a whole bunch of stuff and fought off a whole bunch of dragons and chimeras and hydras and such.
Great.
And came back scarred and learned.
I mean, that's basically what you've done this entire adventure so far, so yeah, makes sense.
Well, they don't need to know that I just basically drank coffee and
right, and stared at
some
books and talked to some people, and,
and
that
like,
was it.
oh, these are some interesting runes, and then like,
you did get mugged by a fiend at one point, but
well, see, that part will be true. So,
right, you can talk about that.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's all I have, Darren. Thanks for
Yeah.
joining me for the one shot.
Thanks. Yeah. Oh, so real
More
quick.
dump.
Yeah. So clarify a little bit. The other players obviously could have watched this, so
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about telling them stuff.
Yeah, it's more in character
okay.
than anything. I want them
Got it.
all to know these things too. It's fun for you to have to work around that.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Just make sure I'm not like, and like
Right.
holding a secret or something.
No super secrets.
Yeah, okay.
I wouldn't have streamed if I wanted it to go that way.
Right.
Gotcha.
Okay. Cool. Looking
I'm
forward
gonna
to it.
stop the stream.